still has some good topics, some things we can tackle today, some very important things. And I just wanted something that I don't think Paula has this in her status update. I just heard about it right before coming to the meeting. Is at the last meeting we mentioned one of our goals was to develop a manual guideline for utility scale solar. Something to give folks that either want to bring business to LA County or even wider across California, something that walks up from cradle to grave and putting a utility scale solar project in the area. And I heard from the county's regional planning department that they are already thinking about that and have put a group of people together to start putting the whole project together. So that's really exciting. So that makes our life easier over here. We just got to work with them, make sure that it progresses in a certain direction and it adds value to everybody. So that's really, really good news. So welcome. So can we go around the room and introduce? Michael?
Hi, I'm Mike Kaiserman from Varengo Solar. Shai Douglas-Point from Varengo Solar.
Over to Southern California, Mark Ammerman from PC, Director of Sales. Mustafa Keshe, LA County. John Tacker, UL. Sammy Gantu, SunPower.
Paul Mellon, SEAC Administrator.
Marla Lee, SEAC Administrative Assistant. Mark Rossi,
Hey, Mark.
Hi.
Join us here.
Yeah. Sure. Well, thank you. James Farmington, RBI Solar. RBI Solar.
And online, who do we have?
So this is Israel, SDG&E.
Hey,
Patrick
Israel.
Healy. It's Craig Carney this morning. Pat Healy, County, San Diego.
Anybody else?
Hey, this is Alan Fields with Longevity.
Hello, Alan. Anybody else online? Okay, so let's get started. And thank you for those folks joining us online this morning. Paula, announcements?
Yes. Welcome to some new guests here today. I think Drew Lippert is new. Mark from QuickMount.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, there's two Marks.
Mark as well.
I'm going in alphabetical order. Mark Ammerman and Mark Pricey. So welcome. And Gilbert, thanks for attending. Hey, Roy, how you doing? And we have a few that weren't able to make it today. There's a trade show apparently, and then there's some staff that are off sick, so they're having to stay at the office. But I see Pat Healy's online and Israel's online.
Or celebrating important events.
So thank you for getting involved and participating. Today our meeting may or may not go for 4 hours for those who are new. It typically goes until about 1:30 in the afternoon. I wanted to move on. We've created our new website. You want to put that up? Sorry. Oh. So we've created our new SEAC website and we've published all 4 AB 2188 recommended practices. And Hector, would you like to talk about it?
Sure. Okay, so this is brand new. This has just got up this week. We've gone through it. Hopefully there's no misspellings or other errors. So please take a look at it. You see something glaring on the website. Play around with it all you want. If you see something glaring, something that maybe we should change, let us know. So it's up and running. It has, scroll up. Get involved. There's places for people, if they want to get information about SEAC, join our mailing list. People can come here. There's our work. Go to About Us first. You see a list of the members, and first name alphabetical. We're going to add titles to this, so everybody's title will be on there. And if they click on their organization, it takes them to their organization's website. Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I can go. Do you want me to go there?
Sure.
Okay.
But you have to okay, good. So, Craig, I don't know if you can see this. You're there, and we have Jeff with his picture, or if you want if you don't like your picture, send us something else, and we'll put it up. And it also has our partners with the SEAC team called SEAC. They're on there, and then the staff of SEAC. Under our work, it has the published briefing notes, and they're PDFs, fully downloadable, and if there's links in the PDFs, they're live links, so that works very well. Under meetings and webinars, it has all the information about upcoming meetings, the free webinars, and the links to sign up for the webinars. Meeting archives, it has the last 6 meetings. They're all PDF. It's a meeting agenda and summary, so those are available, and they're all downloadable, and getting involved takes you right back to signing up for email list. Yes?
If any company or anybody wants to advertise their training or they have webinars like that, can they use SEAC to do so?
We can. We just have to add something for external. Yeah, right. We can do that. So play around with it. Give us your feedback. If something's not right, let us know, and we'll fix it and make it right. Okay.
Oh, and then I just wanted to also mention we're still waiting for some outstanding portrait photos of the members. So if they could please send them through. And then I noticed that there's some here today. I've got my camera, so if any of you want Roy and Gilbert and Mark, I can take your photos later on, maybe during the lunch break or after the meeting. Okay, and then our first SEAC webinar will be held on March the 2nd. We promoted that last week, and we've already got 80 registered to attend, so that's pretty cool. We'll be promoting our AB 2188 single inspection recommended practices. And then in April, we're probably going to do our second issue with it, which is expedited permitting recommended practices. SEAC will also be presenting at this year's League of Cities annual event on March the 9th in Sacramento. I don't know if you want to mention something more about that.
Sure. It's actually a session on solar. And so Mustafa and I started speaking about what the county's doing in regards to leading AB 2188. And then I'm going to talk about SEAC. And Paula, we volunteered her to be the moderator. And Fan, I forgot his last name, Borrego Solar. He's also talking. So this is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the League of Cities, and they're really just city folks. And in my understanding, this conference is well attended. And so this will be a great exposure to the work that we're all doing here, and maybe the first time a lot of jurisdictions hear about SEAC. So we want those cities to get engaged and see what we're doing and take advantage of all the work that you guys do. Sorry. Webinars. I want to touch a little bit of that. We want to do webinars on a monthly basis, and it's just, again, is to let folks know about all the work you guys that's being done, so they take advantage of it. Please let others know about the webinars. We're going to use that as a primary vehicle to let people know what's going on. We're going to be preparing every once in a while newsletters. We have a huge database, and again, to get it to word out about SEAC and let others know, what's going on here. Again, to use the recommended practices that are coming out.
Yes, we encourage all that are here and then all that are online to please promote our webinar to everyone, so that the more that get to know about the work of SEAC, the more impact and influence we'll have. So our work is getting implemented. We're also going to be talking today about transitioning to Google Drive. Tomorrow here we'll be doing a tutorial demonstration later in the meeting. Our March 24th meeting will be held off-site at UL Brea's office. If you want the address, I will forward it to everyone early next week. It is going to be at 2929 East Imperial Highway, Suite 100, Brea. So the full details will be sent to everybody early next week. And then at next month's meeting, we're going to have Paul Daly.
Comment on that too is that if you're intending to fly in, like some of us that are outside the area, the best airport, frankly, to get to the Brea office, I find, is the Ontario airport. It's the easiest drive from any airport. And if you go LAX or if you go Orange County, you'll be in traffic for quite a while. And also, so just an FYI.
How early should we leave LA to get to Brea?
Pardon?
Okay. How early do we need to leave LA in order to get to Brea on time?
To leave here, you got probably an hour.
You'll be going against the traffic if you're going from LA a little bit, so you're not having that much traffic.
Yeah, but I like. I mean, I think of it as if I stay down here. My parents live up in La Crescenta, and so from my parents' house to Brea in the morning, it's an hour drive.
It will be nice and sunny next week, so no traffic accident coming in.
So from my house to Brea office is only 12 minutes. Thank you, John.
You're welcome. We might have it more often.
The next meeting is going to be in your house.
Yeah.
You should with breakfast.
Of course.
All right, and then at the March 24th meeting, we're going to have Paul Daly of AE Solar presenting on energy storage and the future of PV. I know that that's an interesting topic that a lot of you have voiced interest in. I think Pat especially has mentioned that he's interested in that. Paul Daly of AE Solar. And then opening the floor to any announcements from anyone here or online.
So I just want to mention that probably on the open forum we're going to have to address the question from Brian Wilkinson. There's a question in regards to social load and calculations required, and if you have some confidence in solar projects, we'll get to that in the open forum. Yeah.
Okay.
And the coffee and other stuff is late. Yes.
Yeah, it was late because of the rain, I think.
An hour and a half late.
Sorry about that. Is there any other announcements? Any exciting stuff? Come on, John.
Very quiet, sir.
Well, yes, announcements. Why am I just sitting here sleeping? Yes, there is. For those who have a modicum of interest in the subject, which there may be one or two in the room, there will be a week from today, there will be a face-to-face meeting taking a nod from SEAC that there is a value to being, shall we say, sequestered in a room and be able to discuss and debate real time. Is that the manual, the marking and manuals task group for UL 2703, which is chaired by Duncan Clemenshaw from Solar City, will be at UL's PV Tech Center, which is located in San Jose, just about a mile from the San Jose airport. The task group will be meeting from 10 to 3, and if you have any interest in attending or listening in or whatever, you contact me or contact Duncan.
I'd say on my invite it says 11 to 4, so I don't know.
Mine says 10 to 3.
Okay. So whatever you have is probably, you can thank Jeff Spies because he's going by what is Arizona time.
Okay.
Whereas
so it is 10 to 3.
It is 10 to 3.
Time.
Don't believe anything that Jeff forwarded on. That's why I said in my, you must have saw my email saying, why am I getting this? This is written, and I was thinking, this is wrong. Yeah. Anyway, so.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Now that makes more sense.
So it's 10 to 3, and like I said, it's about, at best, it's a mile from the San Jose airport. For anybody who's flying in, it's real easy.
And for the group, I know all you guys are pretty much West Coast based, but what used to be called PV America will be going on at the same time in Boston. So it's a pretty big trade show. So I don't know where I'm going to end up, but
it's one of those things where it was kind of like I'll tell you this, is that when I talked to Duncan and offered to have a spot, a neutral spot, if you will, to discuss, and that I said, you know, we were looking at dates, and that was the only date we could seem to find that worked in the month of February. And we had enough time lag because we wanted people to have an opportunity to find time in their schedule for it. And I already know there's quite a few people that have said they're going to be there, so I think they're from all different types of stakeholders, so I think there will be a really good representation of all different stakeholders' positions.
So John, that's on the 25th, you said?
It is on the 25th, and it is at the UL's PV Tech Center, PV Lab, which is, like I said, just a mile from the San Jose airport.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, and then moving on to status update. Utility issues after our last meeting, which was only 2 weeks ago. I know it's been a little bit, actually a lot to do in the last 2 weeks. We had a conference call last week with our volunteer utility group to further discuss the issues. It was Jim, Israel, Peter. They provided great feedback and input, and then we noticed this morning there were quite a few emails going around as well between Ron Mullock. So then Hector and I took a look at the feedback, which is mostly made up of suggested recommendations. And later in our meeting today, we'll be presenting what we've identified as the issue statements. On UL 2703, a status update will be provided by Hector and Mustafa later in the meeting under agenda item number 8. And then at today's meeting, we'll be focused on transitioning to Google Docs as our collaborative forum, discussing the utility issue statements, and then our status update on UL 2703. And then if we could move to approving a motion to approve the draft meeting summary of January the 28th.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Thank you.
Second. Any discussions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, wait, that was the minutes, right?
Yes.
Just can I ask just a couple quick clarification questions? One, I didn't. Are we going to be able to get a copy of Pete's PowerPoint?
Oh, I sent it out.
Okay. And then the other was the details and links for the agenda items number 6.
Oh yes, there's a page 9. There's a handout. We'll go over that real soon.
Because in for agenda item number 6 for the solar thing, it said that there would be for the solar design tool software program, said details and link, and a link can be shared with everyone after the meeting. It's like
Yeah, I did that.
Okay, well, I must have missed that. All right.
Yeah, I will.
I guess I was looking for it to the meeting report. I guess is how I think about that. Sorry.
No worries. Hello. All right, and then we are moving on to Google Docs and the collaborative forum. I believe Hector would like to say a few words about transitioning to our Google Docs.
Sure. I was going to say a lot of words, but I think Mara's going to cover most of it. We've been looking at different ways to do collaboration, all kinds of different ways, and ended up with Google Docs. It's really fantastic, and maybe some of you have used it, maybe you haven't, but we're going to provide a tutorial and some links. I think once we start using it, you'll see how easy it is and how you can collaborate live at any time, and the updates are there live. So I'm not going to say anymore. I'm going to let Mara take over. And just one last thing. Sorry, Mara. One of the key reasons I'm sure Mara will touch on this is that it is incredibly difficult to collaborate by email.
I know that.
She knows that. She has the biggest challenge. It's very, very difficult. And there's just so many different versions of documents, many more different levels in terms of communication. So I'll let Marl take over and give you some pointers.
Okay. Hello, I'm Marl, I'm the administrative assistant for SEAC. I'm just showing a quick demo of Google Docs, but more importantly, I want to outline some of the key reasons why we want to move our document crafting process to this platform. How we're going to benefit from doing that. If you're unfamiliar with Google Docs already, I'm sorry, hold on, I have to show. It's important. Okay, so if you're unfamiliar with Google Docs, it's just a cloud-based web app that allows multiple users to share and edit a document or slideshow and spreadsheets at the same time, simultaneously. And as you all know, Paula does a ton of heavy lifting in terms of the coordination and organizing of our document crafting for SEAC. I mean, I'm sure you've all seen her emails. She's told me plenty of times that she's had upwards of 100 emails in her inbox at one time, which is insane. So one of the greatest challenges facing our ops team is just, and Paula, is managing the sheer amount of iterations and versions of documents that circulate between them. So how are we going to address this using Google Docs? And we're just going to cut down on how much time and effort it takes to put our heads together and make our expertise with output a tangible product. Okay, so let me show you guys how this is done. This is a typical email invite that you get. Very simple. It's going to invite you to open it up, and I made a mock, recommended practice of what it looks like. So it's a very simple word processor. If you've used Word, you'll be familiar with it right away. The important thing is that, when we invite people, we can give them a certain level of privilege for editing. So you can be an editor who makes direct edits to the document, or you can make comments. You can just really a commenter or just view. Okay. So the utility of Google Docs is that it's online. So it's just one document that we can all work on together. Okay. For example, it's often, as Hector said, when the technical groups want to organize the times that can collaborate, like make a conference call, it's really hard to align everyone's schedule to work. And this can be a great fix for that, because maybe we can have most of the people work, and maybe a couple of people can log on to Google Docs later in time and show all their edits. Okay? And a great feature that Google Docs has that would accommodate that setup would be how Google Docs automatically logs all revisions and any changes made to the document. So if I go here and look at revision history, I can see all the revisions starting from the beginning, when it's been created. So if everything seems that it's fine, it was empty. And then an hour later, there's maybe some of that, highlight who's made changes. Then we can actually revert documents to previous revisions as well. So that's one of the advantages.
So we don't have to do anything special to note that it was. Yeah, like I wouldn't have to do anything special to note, hey, that was my comment. It's going to log it automatically.
Yeah. So
because I'm the one that's on doing that.
So let me just show you quickly. Let's say I want to make a comment about this portion. A little comment button sticks up here. I go ahead and leave a comment. I'll make a comment. Anyone can go ahead and reply. It's like that is the comment. And it'll show you who said what at what time in the comment thread. So we can hold discussion text virtually, as well as provide suggestions and direct edits.
So if we see like a nitpicky type editorial, such as, oh, here's a typo or something like that, are there ways to kind of have those not clutter the whole thing as well? I mean, well, that Paula as administrator can go in and just accept that and just kind of erase that off the table completely, because it's not germane to in my opinion, it's, if it was like, oh, you miss an N in training, is that, it's not going to be the end of the world.
But obviously, you might not need to write a comment itself. If you have an editor, right? So if I look at share,
But none of us will have editor rights, right?
Oh, you will.
Yes, you will.
You will.
Yeah, if you're part of the technical group, you will have editor rights. Or if you request and you say you want to start contributing, we can make you an editor. Or if some of the members just want to go in, view it and comment, they can have those privileges. And then guests will be able to view.
Okay, so John, for example, right now I have editor rights, so I can really make changes and write in changes, right? All changes are blocked no matter who or what kind of change you make, right? And also, let's say I want to not do a direct edit, but I can make a suggestion. So it would be highlighted in the color of the person, and off to the side, it will say exactly what has happened. It will log like who, what, when, how. And on top of that, you can use a question format. But to address that other point, you said you don't want the clutter. Let's say there's a question or a comment or a quick change that you want to be done. You can go ahead, anyone who's editing can go ahead and resolve that comment, and it'll be shoved into the comment history here.
So it's in archives if somebody really is desperate to look at everything, but it's been resolved.
It's been resolved. And you can also bring back an issue. You can reopen it, and it'll come right back to the side of the page. So it's all very interactive and intuitive. The main thing that we're covering is saving time and effort that it takes, and one of this is eliminating, one of the big goals of SEAC 2016 is eliminating the work setting during the meeting. So you have the technical groups work together in an easier way, and also we're going to leave that avenue open for more involved members. Maybe that's not their point of expertise, utilities or whatever, but they still want to contribute to wordsmith, and they can go ahead and come in here and make comments and still go through that. Okay, so we can eliminate wordsmithing from actual meeting.
Mitigate.
Yeah, mitigate.
Reduce. I don't think you're going to eliminate.
Not eliminate. Not for this group.
So is it going to be, is the access going to be per document? So are we going to have access to the entire drive, or is it going to be per document, per invite for the document?
It should, I think right now we're thinking about doing per document because just so it's more technical group specific. And we can have just a shareable link sent to all members to just come in and comment however they like, or we'd like to just invite technical groups to work on a document together. So I think the idea would be to have the technical group work on a document, and come up with a very polished draft. Afterwards, we can open it up to comments from the entire committee. You come in and make any comments. If there's any deal breakers, go ahead and write it in, and then we can look over it and see does this need to be resubmitted to a technical version, or does it need to be made? And if not, then if the document is ready for approval, we can bring it here and get it thumbs up from everybody and have it published.
So what about in those rare instances where you're on the technical group and you look at it, and that rare instance where you have 0 comments on anything in there, you're fine with the as is. How do you communicate that?
What do you mean? So,
and because I haven't made a change, and so therefore somebody will think, oh, John hasn't looked at this.
So what we're going to do is put a time frame. So say you have 2 weeks or 3 weeks to go in there and
Sometime certain.
And after that time, we'll pull the doc out, and then we'll look at it. Okay, and what we said last time is that Paul and I will look into quality, fairness, consistency, and then if it's ready, we'll go from that perspective. Then it'll come to the next SEAC for approval.
So the question is, just curiosity, will it be end of business day, or when Paula logs off finally that night, or
we'll make it end of November. We'll put some specific time on some specific day. That'll be the time.
Ultimately, the added time efficiency, what we're trying to do is expand our ability to address multiple issues at once. So currently, when we're the state at what we're at, we're only able to handle maybe 1 or 2 issues at a time, which makes it difficult for a lot of community members to stay engaged. Someone from a commercial perspective might not care at all about AB 2188 and small residential homes. When we spend 3 hours talking about utilities, some members of the community could see it check out like this. It's no concern to you. So using Google Docs, we can come to the meeting with multiple issues prepared that have been looked at by the committee, and bring it to you guys' attention, and we can have so many things we can address at once and keep everyone engaged and make sure we can utilize the heads that we have in the room, because sometimes we have expertise in one industry, but we're not using it at that certain point. So.
Okay, say something about that. You know, we all have, we're all different backgrounds, different companies, different organizations, and hey, that may not be as interesting to me because that's not really what I do. I encourage you to go in there and look at it. It's surprisingly what you learn. It's surprisingly what input you could have, because you're presenting a totally different perspective. You are, and you may know something there that even though, let's say, you're a scholar and you're talking about something that really focuses on you're a scholar and there's an issue that is related to the 703. Well, there is a connection, but you know, encourage you folks, look at the document, at least look at it and see the progress, and you'll be surprised, you know, what you can get from it and your input. It's a different perspective, and I think that's one of the values of SEAC, that, you know, we're sitting around this table and online, that when we start hearing different things, you go, oh wow, that makes sense, this makes sense. It helps in putting our documents in much stronger recommendations.
Yeah, so I think we shouldn't worry too much about the details of how we're going to be inputting it. Even a suboptimal use of this right now will definitely be just a tremendous amount of time it takes for Paul to, you know, consolidate all these documents you have into one by yourself. And it's just insane. So we're going to go ahead and put this in action as soon as we can. You know, we're getting quite a few emails from the members. I know that some of your business email accounts are linked through Google, so you do have access to, you know, Gmail without making a Google account. If that's the case, and you already know that you have that capability, that's fine. But, you know, from my experience, you do need a Google account to, you know, to make contributions to Google Docs. So in the handout, there's some resources on who to send emails to. It's going to be another, you know, video tutorials, just a couple of those. And it's really quite simple and straightforward. So we're going to play that right away. And thanks for listening to me.
So if anybody, and from today forward, anybody has any questions, need any info, needs some hand holding, absolutely no problem. We'll do that. Yes.
So, question on the Gmail. So, will the invite solely for going on, you know, the alert go solely to the Gmail address that we give you, or will, or I mean, are you going to be saying, oh, I'm going to just use this and now going forward and not use the email address that you've been using for everything else regarding communications? Because that's the only concern. I think it's a great tool. I think no problem with that. The only concern I have is I don't go off and look at my Gmail account I hardly ever go look at it. I'm always front and center seeing my UL email address. So, I'm just hoping that whatever announcements that there is something, you know, that there's something is to also use the prime email address that we've already given to you.
That'll definitely continue.
Okay. Gmail is just to access it. We can send you a link to the document from wherever, but if you're not logged into Google, it'll just prompt you to log into your Google account, and that's how we're able to invite you to the document editing right. So,
and that's fine. So if I'm hearing right, it's just simply I'll provide you my Gmail account, but I'll get the email to my john.k.tacker@ul.com, and then it says, oh, there's something here, and I can click on that, and that'll take me over to these Google documents, and then I can play with it.
Okay, but
is that right?
Yes, but you do get notifications. Let's say you make a comment on the document, and someone addresses you directly, it will notify you in Gmail saying that I don't know, Shai Rotofoin responded to your comment on the document, and it'll say that. It'll let you know exactly when someone's feedback. So maybe there's a way to redirect those to your account, just to your work account, but I'm not so sure. I can look into that. But
that would be,
you can filter out emails so that certain senders would actually be sent to your UL account. I'm pretty sure. So if you were to receive these auto emails.
But that's the only thing that I would like them to, because like I said, frankly, I don't want to be having to, there's some people that have no problem. I have got a friend of mine who's got something like 5 or 6 email addresses, and he has no problem of monitoring every single one of those accounts. I, on the other hand, like it simple, just one account, everything, and then I don't have to go look at everything else.
We'll see if there's some resources for that, make it easier seamlessly. I mean, Alan mentioned that there is a way, so.
Yeah, like I said, I'll check with my IT guys as well.
Any questions? Any other comments on that? We have coffee and some refreshments. Anybody interested right now?
Does anybody want to take a short break to grab some coffee or?
I would like some candy.
Okay.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah, we'll just have a short break.
Timing's everything. Timing's everything. So, I have a question, or actually a
7:30.
favor to ask of you is that, not during this break, because we're not going to have enough, but at some point before you leave, could we have a conference call with the manufacturer and with the installer regarding those control panels? Because they're, and I'll here, I'll show you an email I just got this morning from
You're right? Yeah, Rich talked with Phil, and of course, the Phil story is a lot different than any other story. It took me 2 hours. Which doesn't surprise me one bit. Yeah, no, today would have been the day to take off. But, yeah, today was brutal. Today was brutal. I was having a hard time getting hold of you earlier this week, and I said, well, because Dave's out. Yeah. I told her I was trying to get started. Yeah. And I can tell just by sitting here that the people are yeah, you know, you can go ahead and order me whatever you can print, and I can go upstairs and print for you.
You don't mind, yeah. I mean, I can start to break also.
No, I can do that. I can do it break.
Yeah, whenever.
Now or?
No, whenever. I just might want to get
Okay,
I mean, I'm going to email it to them. I'm going to email it to them also. It's all right.
Sure, it's not a problem. Here, I'll give you my email. You can write it down.
I think I have it. What is this?
And they are
If
LEE.
I release there, yeah. Okay, I'll send it to you.
Oh, this is gravity.
If I would have gone, I would have been in a lot worse shape because there was, they were digging they were digging for breakwater retention wall.
Are you using that?
No, precast.
When you said it was bad, I thought, oh,
No, they digged the hole for the precast wall. Gravity. One of my other inspectors was standing over there, he watched the whole thing. I said, okay, who pushed me? Did you have a break or a fracture? Well, I'm at the city approved witch doctors right now. And of course, they're always very, I have a nephew who is an orthopedic surgeon. And one of his clients is a nurse. So,
yeah, sure, I'll go with you.
You know, home for, outside of the A&E. Because I hear you hurt your knee. So we're ready, poking around, see if you jump about 3 feet. Yeah, you got some. Right, or out of there, of course, there's the oh, there's all kinds of injuries. Physical therapist always say, well, I'm not sure it's there. Oh, let's put it in perspective. Third time injury, your surgery is before. And he said, I have a lifetime of 30 days and I have to go back. I would go back to my orthopedic surgeon.
So it's not like 15,000 miles or 5 miles, whichever comes first.
Yeah, no, after, well, the first one has to be an expansion project, right, for everything that
told the guy yesterday, the guy wanted to do it in opportunity for 43, got all this to do,
the building collaboration tools out there, they come a little bit more.
and
So, how does Google use it? Where are they trying to tell from? I don't know, man. There's always something there. It's nothing freaking simple. Yeah, it's always something.
And then when I read this from Rich this morning, I
don't think there's any ads. I haven't seen any.
either get somebody out there to evaluate it.
Gmail follows the text in your emails and then sends you targeted ads.
Yeah, I did that.
So you're going to get ads for solar things if you're talking about solar in your Gmail.
So we're going to add everybody here.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we probably know all the other people are going to try to sell us stuff anyways. We'll get ads for everybody.
Oh, I got one that,
Good to get. Yeah.
I got a water filtration system at the brewery.
Yeah, that's the one thing about Gmail. They filter through your text to find things that they think they can sell you.
They don't have people reading.
No, you just just the evil robot.
So I you don't believe me, just send a bunch of emails.
Water purification.
Sure, money. You'll see what we have.
Like I said, it should be a quick call. And well, we're ready to
Well, they're going to be consistent, guys.
Well, no, actually, I think Phil brought this one up to me some time ago. I said, yeah, you're right. Take care of it.
Sorry for the folks online. The coffee's really good. Especially because there's a lot more for it. It was a long ride up from Charleston today. Okay, so thank you, Mauro. And again, if anybody needs help, and we'll find a way to, regarding emails, help John out. We'll figure something out. There's some tools out there that do that for you.
I'll find something.
You'll find something. Good. Okay, now we're going to talk about UL 2703. At the last meeting, and some of you were at our meeting with Toronto many of the manufacturers together. There's been a lot of discussions in UL 2703 regarding the installation instructions, and there's been a lot more during this week. And we'll stop going into details, but folks, by the end of the day, crossing our fingers, we'll have an email that says we're done, we're good, and we can just seal this and move forward. So, so we're there, and I've been beating up the stuff a little bit. Is that what you call it? Beating me up? We actually kill it. But he's okay with it. So, he walked in. Yes. Sir, he walked in. That's good. Feel free to go into the details. Yeah, just a little of background. So to just bring you updates from the last meeting. As Douglas mentioned on the last meeting, there has been a group put together by the manufacturer of the racking system, and in order for anybody who wants to be a member, they actually have to be a member of the SEAC. So this group took our 15-point installation instruction that a requirement that we gave this group. Apparently, this group took on their own path of going through these 15 items. They corresponded back to us last week. Since then, we had meetings with Don Meta last night at about 4 o'clock or 4:30 last night. We actually agreed to a little modification on what the requirements that the county put out there. Okay, and it's pretty much ready to go, finalized, ready to go. It's just a matter of Don is going to take this back to the group. There is apparently there's like a 9-member on that committee. Just to finalize it, get the group to agree, we'll be good to go after that. So we're looking forward to manufacturers to be able to use that document, not only for LA Group, but for the nation. We really want this to be, and at the same time, I know the SDP members are here. I know that they are going to have a meeting just like John mentioned next Thursday. even though we are not going to be in your old office, but we're going to call in and be on that conference call, Mr. Tacker. So, but under no circumstances, I just want to make sure, and I want to repeat where the county stands as we speak. We don't want to undermine or take anything from the standard or from the committee, okay, whatsoever. We just feel that we want to get people to sell their product in the county or in the nation. And we feel if we could kind of summarize, get into, have the inspector be able to take a look at these items quickly, rather than, no, I don't see this. I want to see the full listing report. I want to see the registration instruction is not correct because I don't see it on the listing report. So we won't be asking for listing reports. We won't be asking for, as long as you follow these 15 items. And when I'm saying we, I'm not talking about the county. I'm talking about inspectors, building officials. Okay, this should set a tone that for any installer and for any inspectors who wants to do installation should be able to hand this to the inspector, hand it to the plan checker, and that should do it. And that should be to the detail. Is not full-blown detail, but all the items are there as far as working, as far as diagram, as far as and we're hoping by next week when we have a meeting with the SDP on the manual, we'll be able to either incorporate these into it or have them modified, and we are open to any modification whatsoever. So the good news is we are 95% due to the group back to us and agree to those little bitty details. Okay, and according to Don he said that it should be no problem. Okay, so that's the latest. That's it.
Where's the current list right now of the 15 points? Is it available on the SEAC website, or?
It's not available on the SEAC website, but I got your card and I'm going to forward it to you. That list has been...
But it will be modified?
That list would be a little bit modified.
So it may not be a wise thing to post it on the website.
What we can do is
I know you're going to email it to me. So.
But we both got comments from TUV. I'll look at the chats also. And we have a document that merges all the comments. So if anybody wants to see all of that, we can send it out to you. And without the new changes, at least you have everybody's comments on there. So we can make that available. So if you can put it up on the website, or we can just email it to you.
I would suggest that you not put it on the website, because once you put something on the website, then it kind of gives it a certain finality, kind of to it. Whereas this is still, like, you know, even though you said 95%, if you post it, then it's going to be presumed it's 100%.
Okay. So we'll email it.
And on the second thing, I would certainly, you know, I've seen the original. I've seen the manufacturer's responses to it. I haven't seen any variations further on that, and I mean, if there is an ability to put in some comments, I didn't realize that there was. I thought that by commenting on the previous items,
it wasn't required by any of the.
Okay, so it's not something. It's not like I was just kind of concerned of, like, was I missing something that I was supposed to respond, or?
We didn't. We sent this out, and our focus was the manufacturers rather than the test labs. We feel that it is the manufacturer's job to be able to get these documents, because manual gets written by manufacturers and the test labs verify it. So we didn't feel like, but Jack on his own from TUV has responded, and that's what Hector was saying. The other thing is I want to use the SEAC website as we recognize each company. We will post that manual on the SEAC website. So for anybody who wants to use it, it doesn't have to be county. We're going to have it our own, but SEAC should be a good place. And the other thing is we're going to be, as part of that 15 point, the manual that is going to be given to us. The first time around, we're going to be asking Tesla, the nodal, to give that manual to us. Okay, and we're hoping that that manual doesn't get changed, or if it gets changed, if the changes are affecting the ground path due to 2703, the manufacturer will notify the test lab, and the test lab will forward a new manual to us. Other than that, there would be no more, I want to see your latest update. No. Everything is going to be on the SEAC, and a copy of that manual will be attached part of the approval that plant checkers, regardless of who, can attach part of it, and the inspector could see it as he's doing the inspection.
So we've had lots of conversation on this, and I greatly appreciate the thought of the posting of your step of posting on the SEAC website. A slight concern long term, I think it's a great interim, but I think long term, I think that it may become quite interesting to maintain that over time. And it would seem like they're, just like I find it interesting that CalCEA had decided to post, for example, all the fire stuff, when it's like, we don't go, as a test lab, as a NERDL, we don't go and look at somebody else's postings on somebody else's website to see if that's what the latest and appropriate is. And there might be something where the standard might have been updated to require something else. And now the requirements have changed. Maybe there's something that's new to that instructions. And people are just going along fine because nobody's really, shall we say, there might not be certain people involved that may be as performing due diligence, and they miss some of those things. And so I think, I recognize what you're doing on the short term, but I think that long term there ought to be a more, shall we say, closely monitored. Like we monitor exactly what we post on our website. We monitor exactly what's posted in our certification directory.
What do you suggest? Like if you have a suggestion to be great, if not.
Well, what I'm suggesting is that if you get, well, let me put one more comment, is that if we are constantly, if our staff is, and it doesn't matter whether, I don't care if it's ETL or UL or TUV, I think it's going to be the same for any of us, is that if we are going to be constantly asked to reaffirm or provide this, it takes time for us to do so. It would seem like maybe a better way is that maybe it's posting those, those installation instructions on our website and be done with it.
Yeah. Ultimately, that will take care of everything. We'll be talking about it with all three of you, and you guys do that, no problem. But meanwhile, we've got to trust the manufacturers. This is a huge trust that we want to build between us and the manufacturer.
I'm not suggesting there's
Well, it's just about posting.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not talking about trust issues. I'm just talking about keeping up to date to the latest and greatest.
So we're going to make sure the manufacturers are responsible. That if there is any changes, they notify the SEAC or whatever, or if you as a test lab, if your company is willing to do so, that would be the best place to be. Yeah. That's absolutely, really, we're hoping that the test labs will be able to take this as we discussed before.
And there's one other reason why it could be an import is that somebody might say, hey, here I have this product, and they provide, and I've got the certification. I provide the installation instructions to you. You post it. Let's say later that maybe that product gets withdrawn. Yeah. Maybe that product, for whatever reason. So, like I said, there's
on one hand, I totally understand what you're doing and why, but on the other hand, I'm just kind of like, maybe, I hope that this is simply, frankly, more of an interim step, not a final step.
We can eliminate the interim step. If you guys, if you, TV, ETL can do this, that's awesome. That's really the best solution. It works. It's there. You guys know what's the latest. Because if we have to post it and then something changes and we don't get it in time, there's lag, and then that creates all kinds of problems, and just maintaining all of these could be a major headache. So
what and I certainly suggest that you go along with what you have right at the moment. I think that there really is could be a discussion, because of what you're looking for, is that discussion of having the NERLs talking with the manufacturer group on regarding that, as here's another way to skin the cat, so to speak.
Or we could put up the STP next week. That is going to be one of my suggestions.
I have no problem with, it's funny is that Duncan and I had talked about that and have no problem with that, though bearing in mind that the posting where the installation instructions are not necessarily an STP function, but it certainly has a symbiotic relationship with it. So the hope is that in the agenda would be, and I believe Duncan put out the agenda, I believe the agenda is talk about what is the needs of the AHJs, what are the needs of the manufacturers, and then talk about how to, and then say this is what ultimately you need in the form of markings. This is ultimately what you, minimum what you need in markings. This is ultimately what you need minimum of instructions. And then work backwards to say, okay, and then you work backwards, you say, this is what I want end goal. Now I'm going to write the requirements such that I will achieve that goal, rather than try to go with, well, what are the requirements, and let's, how do they need to be fiddled with, because that's really screwed up a lot of times in the past in this discussion. And then at the end, we can talk about, okay, what would be the ways to communicate that, such as, through how the certification requirements are communicated, how the certification marks appear, not the engineering markings, but the certification markings, as in identifying, oh, there's this UL, was this ETL, was this TV, and second of all is where do I find that information as well on the certification directories. So certainly that would be part of that discussion. One thing I will say for those people, and I'm glad you mentioned it, Mustafa, I should have mentioned earlier, is that we do have the ability, and I'll have it where there'll be a call-in number that for those people that that they can't be there in person. Recognize that, of course, we will have the same issues as we have here. That it's a little bit more difficult for those people that are not present, but we will do every effort to accommodate for it. It will be only audio. It will not be, I don't have the means to provide video as well. Okay, just to let you guys know, just up front so nobody goes, what? And then the second thing is, of course, anything that if we put writing of something on a board or something like that, I'll try to capture that and provide that as a picture for people to see. But so there's just the limitations of the facility in that regards. But if you're interested, by all means, and you want to make sure that you have that call-in number, then please zip me an email, john.k.tacker@ul.com, just to absolutely doubly make sure that you have that contact information.
Is it the maximum number of people can then call in, or just?
It's no different. What I'm going to be doing is literally is going to be going through LinkedIn.
Online, any comments, questions?
Here, Chris Myron, I'm going to relay what he said. He says, I thought we were a conduit to the various entities supplying information and allow others to make informed decisions. If necessary to put a footnote to check with the various manufacturers / entities to ensure they are up-to-date material. And I just want to remind you, Chris Byron, you're actually free to speak to the mic. You're a panelist now. But yeah, that was a comment.
Sorry, can you repeat it?
I thought we were a conduit for the various entities to find information and allow others to make informed.
Okay, hang on. Okay, you still there?
Chris?
Good.
Chris has muted himself.
Wait, still there?
Hey, guys.
Oh, there you go. Hey, Chris. Okay, just a little background on how this kind of evolved. It started as an LA County thing, so we were doing this strictly LA County. So then it evolved. But, you know, I'm going to be sending out the document with the comments from TUV and the comments from Don Mathis Group later on today. And again, it won't have the counties, the new edits, or the back and forth that has gone. It'll just be the older. But if you take a look at that, and in fact, anybody else here, you know, there's still, you know, if you see something there that's really, really glaring, you know, take a look at it and give us your feedback, and then we'll respond back, because there's been a lot of discussions. But you're absolutely right. This is the forum to bring up the issues. It's just the way this one worked out. It wasn't originally a SEAC issue. It was really restricted to LA County. But you know, it's, you know, SEAC is the forum, you know, to get input. So when you get that, please take a look at it. And if you want to talk to us, and Mustafa or me, no problem. And we can go from there. Does that work for you, Chris?
Sure. I'm just speaking, just so you guys know, generally from kind of watching the speed at which we've kind of progressed. I don't think we're ever going to make everybody happy.
Right.
But having a document that's pretty close to what it reflects, especially for like an LA County or a specific region or a specific utility, I think we can happily publish that, saying, hey, this is information. Take it, use it for how you need, and work to fight more fires than focus so much on very minute details in each specific thing. So we seem very slow to move forward, and we spend a lot of time analyzing and critiquing things that don't really need that much critique, because they're not actually going to be scrutinized as much as we're scrutinizing them ourselves.
Oh, yes, I agree. John?
So I've heard someone a long time ago told me that consensus means that nobody goes away happy, which is, you know, it sounds horrible the way I said it, but in some respects it is. I mean, that you're not going to, like you say, you're not going to get every single thing you want. You have to give, there's a give and take, certainly. And you have to go what's important to you. As far as what I think that what I hear from the code officials, the HJs, is the need to have something that's clear so that they can do that single inspection quickly, efficiently, and achieve code compliance.
Right.
And on the flip side, the manufacturers are looking for, how can I communicate that the simplest and easiest way that it's not going to be difficult for them to do as well. And then the nerdles will be figuring out how do we play our role, which is to make sure that that the minimums are done, and then the AHJs can look at the certification, can look at the instructions, and be confident that they follow that, everything's cool. And so that's what this whole thing's about. I see that it's great what the county brought forward, their concerns. There will be, but ultimately, I know that I believe everybody wants to have it that it's all taken care of by the standard of what the minimum is, so that we don't have to spend all that time on that, on those little minute details.
Thanks, John.
Yeah. I just remember coming from, a few meetings ago, we always would just try to remind ourselves, I think, through all of our various panel discussion that, we never tell an AHJ or somebody that has that jurisdiction, that, this is how it should be done. We're just merely a conduit for, kind of like you said, John, getting everything lined up, get it ready to go. Here's the facts. Here's the code minimum. Here's things that are commonly being done, and that way it's kind of lined out so that that person can then ultimately make the final decision that works best for their jurisdiction or for their region as they see fit.
Thank you.
One thing about the posting of stuff online, I think it's important to remember that we don't even post our own manuals online. There's some concern with, unlike perhaps inverters or modules that are much more complicated, it's quite easy to copy racking. And so there is some resistance, I guess, from our side on posting our manuals online. And where it comes back to trust, obviously all of our documents have to have the mark on them and have been reviewed and have a date and have my name on it, certainly for us. And so I would just have some concerns expressed about saying, yeah, we're going to put it all over the web when we don't even put it on our own website. It's not that we don't want people to have our install manual, but we're operating at we're not selling through distribution or anything like that. We're doing large-scale projects, so that's a concern. And the other thing is I'm very happy that SEAC addresses this forum, because I wouldn't know. Like the 15 things in the list are relatively reasonable, but having not joined the SEAC group yet, I'm eager to take a harder look at that list and say, what can we do to make things easier on us, because otherwise I'd have to be calling Mustafa and David saying what's wrong all the time. So having this list means that the next time I turn stuff in and write it, I can hit those 15 points. So I'm grateful that it's addressed here, even though I know it's kind of a trap to get caught in the minutia of it. Since a lot of us are going to be working on these documents, it helps to have that out in an open forum.
Thank you, and we'll take that into consideration about posting things online.
Just one thought about that is that you might want to think about, just a crazy idea here, is that there are certain things that Mustafa and other HJs, and it doesn't matter, I'm Mustafa because he's next to me, and Pete, whoever, Steve, Pat, what they need certain minimum things, pieces of information. They don't need to know every single little iota of maybe there's little nuances like, that are proprietary to you that you just have only your installers get to see. If that's the case, maybe what you could consider is that is a supplement kind of stuff that is not what the standard requires. They're looking at what the minimum the standard requires. And so maybe you could do it as that it's a two-parter. Just a thought. And that would, I think, accomplish your goal of the proprietary, because that's what I sensed was some things in there that you don't want to have there. But you're going to want to say loud and clear, hey, I've got Class A with these modules, or I've got, this is the ground path. You go from here to here to here to here. That's the ground path. That's what they're looking for.
Also, what we're really just looking for is when the inspector goes out there, or they know this is the latest. That's really it. And everybody knows, okay, this is the latest. And everything matches here. That's really, how do we get there?
And I don't think, I'm sorry, and I don't think the HJs want to see every little iota of how you do this bolt first, and you do that bolt first, and you do this bolt first. Because they're not there to see that. All they want to know is what was the torque value that was required. That's it. Bomb. I'm gone. I'm done.
Don't forget there's part of the AB2188. There's one inspection requirement, and we are doing everything possible. I'm speaking for the county, and I'm speaking Dave, and I'm speaking Oceanside as well, and all the jurisdictions. We're trying to comply with the law. The best way of doing that is being able to have the document. All our inspectors have been given either a tablet or a smartphone to be able to quickly look that up and say, no, I have to come back tomorrow, or call me for an inspection. You don't want that. That's all I get. But if you guys feel that you don't want to share your installation instructions with anybody else, we have no problem. But don't forget, part of the approval that goes from our office here, a copy of the installation instruction will be attached to that approved set of plans. That we will be honest, because of course we have to make job easier for inspectors.
Any other comments, questions?
I just want to add one more thing. It was brought up to SEAC regarding UL 2703. I think Hector sent the email to me and Paula last week, and I agree with it 100%. We are going to address all those item 5, 6, 7, and 8, and by us accomplishing this installation structure, I think would be an easier answer. For example, what is UL 2703? So, because it's a huge question for a lot of inspectors out there. Oh my God, I keep hearing about this 2703. What is it? What is it? I still feel that the group, we should still have the same group that we had, and I still feel that we should be able to address those questions because we want other installers. If the installer wants to know what's going on, or the inspector wants to know what's going on, or the other official wants to know what's going on, to be able to get a hold of this document, and that's what SEAC was about.
So let's bring that up. So originally, the 4 original issue statements, UL 2603, a couple of them are a little bit controversial.
Yes.
I took a stab of rephrasing them, and we haven't shared those yet because we're still playing around with them. But we will share those back and write those issue statements. But again, it's really to get information in people's hands, and you guys know that. So people understand, how to deal with different things, products, etc. So we will share those with you when we're ready to tackle those issues. And today we're going to tackle the issue statements for related to utility. So Paul, do you want to? Oh, looks like this is going to be our quickest meeting. Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway, Paula.
Yeah. I just wanted to make mention. Oh, the other one. We have some members that are only going to be able to join us at 12.
Okay.
And that's going to be the utility issues.
Okay, so we want to wait?
So we could, I could either start with introducing the issue statement.
You can also do open forums. I know Brian Wilkinson had a question about structural load.
So we're going to hold off on item 9 for now, and we can go to the other items. Okay. And eat lunch.
Well, there's some chat questions here that maybe we could go to. So.
Okay. So, this is from Brian Wilkinson. Go ahead.
Sorry, from who?
Brian Wilkinson.
Okay.
He had a question. When are structural load calculations required? We have conflicting solar projects where heating structural load calcs were dependent on the credit section. So I don't know. There's not a lot of context for this question. That's why I unmuted him. Hoping he will. Are you there, Brian?
It seems like a very specific.
Yeah. Part of small PV or part of any PV?
Because we can. Yeah, we can. The best thing, if Brian, if we can take that, put it in an email, get more information, a specific jurisdiction, a specific area.
Yeah, I told him we'll address it during the open forum, which I thought would be like after lunch at least. But I told him not to open that. But I guess we got to it now. He might not be here right now.
So can you respond back to him and let him know? Send us an email with that information. We need more specifics. Who's us? You.
Okay. The guy who has to do all the work.
So then we can forward it to the appropriate people because we're not going to tackle that here.
Okay.
Not at least right now.
Okay. Okay. So.
So I don't know if he's listening or not, but the way we do it in the county is if it's part of the small PV AB 2188, we actually generated a form, and it's part of the guidebook too.
Okay.
But LA County has got a little form itself. It's checkmark, and as long as they say within all the checkmark for yes, no problem. You don't need to have a structural tax or anything. Right. Every time you say no, then you have to put the structural tax for the system. So.
Do we need to do just the structural cost or the entire plan set in that situation?
No, well, are you doing part of AB 2188 guidebook? So if you follow all the checklists, and I'm saying yes, all the goodies on it, then you don't need to provide any count. The minute you say no, that means you get out of that box. That's what Mr. John Hughes loves to call that AB 2188. You get out of that box. And when you get out of that box, then a structural calculation is required. What is it, by the way? Is Donnie on the line?
Probably at the beach. I have a question for, as long as we have some time now. Mustafa, when we mount the solar panels on the roof, 2188 says it has to be mounted on us. You have to leave the 3 feet for the fire. But all the illustrations seem to show that you can bring down the solar panels to the full extent of the roof. Now, lately it's been talked about that they want to bring it up to the part of the roof that's supported by a wall. It's not necessarily a bearing wall, but it's a wall.
You're not supposed to be having anything in the fire setback whatsoever, according to LA County fire. So the state fire, when who's our friend? Left the state.
Kevin Reinerson.
Yeah, when I talked to Kevin Reinerson from State Fire Marshal back last April, he said as long as the modules don't get into the fire setback, so you could have electrical conduit in that fire setback, but as long as the modules are not the. So as far as the 3 feet, the fire setbacks, all of this, you're really enforcing that.
So what you're saying is, if I understand it right, so the setback, say, is 5 feet from, for this particular property, would be 5 feet from the property line, but the roof overhang is going to be within that particular setback, correct?
Right.
So ergo, that's why the panels would stop at where that wall would be, because that would be 5 feet from the property line.
Well, don't forget, you're looking at, are we looking at roof, or are we talking about
A roof.
So you're talking about within the roof.
So wait a
Talking
minute.
about within the roof.
Oh, there's a property line, and then there's a unobstructed 5-foot side yard between the property line and the house.
That's setback. Property setback.
Yeah, property setback. The roof, what they're saying is the roof itself, all the illustrations in the guidebook talk about the roof. The illustrations show you bringing down the solar panels to the edge of the roof. And if you read the words say that it has to be at a strong point, like a bearing wall. So some AHJs are letting you move the solar panels down to the full extent or within 6 inches of the edge of the roof because they're supported by the rafters. It's pretty strong. Now I understand in LA County you want to start counting no bottom of the solar panel except where it touches a wall.
That's not what I said. Did somebody told you that, or is something
That's what I'm hearing. Is that in fact correct?
That might be for the support of the racking system, not the solar panel.
Exactly. That's not,
yeah.
somebody wrote you up on that?
No, this is what we're hearing.
Because most racking systems have to be on a rafter or stuff like that for the support. Yeah. No matter what the weight is, you have to have some rafter and they're probably saying the edge of the wall, the exterior wall. I'm not sure.
The tails that are hanging.
Yeah,
the
tails can hang out, but the racking system has to be the racking foot.
The racking foot has to be
on the bearing wall.
I see.
Because if you go out past that, you really don't have anything. Even though you got the rafter extensions out there, you really have no support.
Okay. So if the rack
it'd actually be in plywood with a 2x4 that's attached to nothing.
Yeah. Okay.
Those are usually tails.
Yeah, it makes sense that you get overextend but the rack has to be in the.
So in other words,
the length of the rack.
First foot and last foot can be on the exterior bearing wall. The whole racking system together. No.
Got it.
So it kind of begs the question. I was just thinking about when Mustafa was talking about and you were talking about the changes to the issue statement for the 2703. There appears to be, in my mind, two different types of discussions we have. Either we have discussions about what ought to be the practice or procedure for doing something, and the other is just trying to understand what the requirement is
and why and such. And so it's kind of more like an information.
Yes, exactly.
And so it kind of, if we try to, I'm just musing that if we're trying to push all these into recommended practices, I don't think that's necessarily the best thing to consider. Maybe we have recommended practices of what you do, but you also have, if you need information about, like, I need to understand about fire classification. I need to understand what fire classification is, where it's covered in the code, and all those kind of things. And maybe draw upon those of us who've been involved in the code development and the development of those regulations to help in trying to give that background and say, hey, by the way, there's this information. Oh, this is in the NEC handbook, or this is information that's over in the IBC commentary, or this is information over in UL White Book, or something like that, just to help people focus on those kind of areas where we tend to have these conversations.
That's actually really good. If we can get some ideas as to one of those more popular issues that come up that require information, that would be good. I know Pat Healy, he sent us some suggestions about very specific code that requires clarification from us, and then we can put that out there as information.
I would be more than happy, because I've probably written some of the requirements that you I probably have drafted some of the requirements you're going, but I would be more than happy to serve have a real small team, kind of draft out a couple of things, so what this might look like, and take a couple of topics that I think that constantly get, I hear constantly asked in chapter meetings and my phone calls and stuff.
Good. So if you look at the website, it says provide information and recommended practices. So it's there.
And to kind of keep it as, one day, this is what actions you should take, and this is just letting you know what you're about what you're doing.
So what is UL 2703? That's information.
That would be information, because there's nothing about an action you take. It's just informing you.
Okay. Thank you. So are we still, where are we? Next steps are open forum. Is there an open forum?
Well, yeah.
Because we've still got an hour until other folks are going to join us.
Yeah, I can launch into the next step and action item.
Okay.
And next step. Oh, well, I guess we can leave it on there.
I have a quick question if she's still looking. Do you know what the name of the SEAC group is with the racking manufacturers?
Contact Don Massa.
It is
I was going to talk to Jeff, but he's not here today. So.
No, Don Massa is the leader of it.
Okay.
Mounting system.
You know how to get a hold of Don?
Sorry.
You know how to get a hold of Don?
I don't.
Okay.
But you have to be a SEAC member.
Yeah, RBS Solar is a SEAC member, yeah.
Mounting Systems Manufacturers Committee. MSMC.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll give you Don's contact so you can get to him.
Thank you, John.
Okay, so next step and action item. That's going to be concluding gathering members' portrait photographs, the ones that are outstanding. Like I said, those who are here today, I've got my camera, I can take photos of them. And then also collecting the outstanding Gmail accounts for our Google Docs. Next step and action items on UL 2703 is, looks like we're going to probably be wrapping that up next week or the week thereafter.
And the installation instructions, yeah. Okay. I was hoping today to get an email from Don today, but
he's gone. He has got some family issues, but he said,
oh, okay.
By the middle of
okay, all right.
Right, then utility recommended practices, we're going to continue our work with that and aim to hopefully conclude and present at our March meeting for consensus. The conference call we had last week that our utility convened on, it did sound like there's going to be a lot of work with regards to writing up we've got a lot of recommendations. So there's a lot of work involved in that. I think that a lot of recommendations can be put forward. The utilities, however, will obviously need to reach out and get buy-in on those recommendations.
I think something about that is, this is said before, but it's our newer folks, whatever recommended practices come out of here, you know, we are not an official regulatory body or anything like that. We're not forcing anybody to do anything. It's that, hey, we look collectively at the issues and we believe this is the best way to proceed. If you go back to your organization, you have heartburn about that, you know, let us know and see if we can make adjustments if necessary. So nothing here is binding. It really is not, you know, hey, you've got to do this. There's no other way around it. It's not binding. It's just, you know, collectively we've got some of the expert best folks in the industry here, put our minds together, and hey, we believe this is the best way to go. We hope that industry, that private and public, they look at it and say, hey, this is a really good thing, and they implement. So this is, again, it's not a binding.
So it brings up a good question in my mind is that I think there's a need to be careful about what is, and we throw around a lot the term best practice, and sometimes best practice is you know, like that would be great. It would be great to have the most, I would love to have a luxury car. It would be a great way to go down the road to get to a meeting. But I can go to the meeting just as easily in my truck or on a motorcycle, and I can accomplish the same thing. So, so I think that I think sometimes there can be a little bit of creep where we might have, this is the Cadillac. We really would love that, but if you're here, that's great.
Yeah.
And so if we can kind of, I think, really keep that in mind. I saw that on the utility one, and it said the best practices, and it's like, it would seem like this is what's minimum that's needed to really do, to have the job reasonably good. But, you know, if somebody wants to go screaming past it, here are some other things you might want to consider, that's fine. I don't mind saying that, but I think we need to make that distinction between what's need and what's want.
Can I ask a question? This is on the utility group. What utilities?
So from our last meeting, those who volunteered was Jim from Solar City, Israel from SDG&E, Tiffany Shai, Don Hughes was on it, Alan Fields.
And I thought I volunteered.
Oh, you weren't on it?
I thought I volunteered.
Utilities.
Utilities, it was Pat Healy that was on the call.
No.
Oh, sorry, the utilities. San Diego Gas and Electric and LADWP.
Who is it from LADWP?
Peter Liang, who will be here at 12.
Because I have a meeting on their restructuring next week. All their solar stuff.
And we're encouraging Gilbert to
Yeah.
from SEAC.
Yeah.
Come on board again. There you go. Excellent.
Yeah, there was a change in DWP on how things were working over there.
Yeah.
We were hoping if you could get somebody from the PG&E to join us too, so that we cover California, pretty much the whole California.
Yeah, Tiffany actually, she copied me in on one of her emails, and she reached out to somebody at PG&E.
Oh, you know, we also have smaller, like Burbank, Pasadena, too. We do have a few other small power generators, but I've seen it that want to know who was involved with it with DWP because there's been changes over there.
Yeah.
Stuff that was done.
We can get their input. It really is that. It's, you know, as things
Yeah.
move forward, it's totally perfect to go out and reach out to them. Hey, this is in progress. What do you think?
Yeah, because like I said, DWP is in flux, is changing some other procedures.
And it was Jason Rondo, who assigned Peter to the group.
Yeah, certain really was taken out of it and it's been given to
Oh.
I just wanted to say that
Have you contacted somebody?
utilities, there's like
Tiffany
60 or 70 utilities in the western United States that belong to a
about that last time.
Yeah.
We can reach out to USERC and let them know about SEAC, and that way if they have concerns or if they want to join, there's like utilities that are municipalities that are local, Burbank, Pasadena, Anaheim, they're all utilities, individual municipalities. I can reach out to them.
Thanks, Gilbert, yeah.
I have a person, the person at PG&E you should really talk to is Daniel Chance, because he's responsible for their green book. He's responsible, that book details exactly how you install, how you interconnect to for the service.
Oh, okay.
And so he would be the right one.
But John, when you mentioned last week, on the last meeting, sorry, that on the user there's actually a committee at the OVP.
Yes, there is one. There's USERC 400, it's the 400 committee.
500.
500, excuse me. Where's the other one? 500, the 500 committee, and since I'm involved with that, that's why I was going to make the connection with them.
Well, so 500 is just one of the subcommittees of all the other committees, but you know.
But it's addressing the PG. Excuse me, it's addressing the solar specific.
Solar specific. Whatever you guys want, I can make it happen because I'm the chairman of the user.
Oh, thanks, Gilbert.
If you need,
Where you been, sir?
We're hiding.
The next meeting is in Seattle, Washington, then Portland, Oregon, and then Sacramento. The last one we just had was in February, which was Wednesday. That was an emergency meeting. The person that we're supposed to be in Arizona, but we had to just take the last minute scramble and get a place.
Well, if existing contact is fantastic, we need a conference call to kind of brief the group on what we do, we can do that.
Yeah, I think that would be good. As a matter of fact, if you want, I could arrange it. If you personally want to go out there or follow somebody and give like a 1 hour or half an hour presentation, that would be really helpful because when you do that, then that's going to stick in their minds and they're going to probably document, or you could have some handouts that you can give, and then whenever it comes to solar issues, they can address it with SEAC.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
That would be really valuable.
Yeah.
The meeting where they get the most people, they have 4 meetings a year. Where they get the most people is the annual meeting, which is in November in Sacramento.
Yeah, that was a good one because they have all the manufacturers that have new products like solar-ready panels. They bring all their stuff, right? So you can physically look at it.
Nice. All right, and then putting together commercial guidelines group to commence the scoping, planning, and execution.
Yes, I mentioned earlier that I've been trying to find out who else has done this throughout the country, and there's been some efforts, but this morning I found out that the county's regional planning department is going to kick that off. Next month, they're actually putting out a group of people together to scope it out.
Oh, nice.
And I haven't talked to them yet because I just went out this morning, but if they're doing that, it affects they might have funding to do it, which is a huge plus. But I want to see what is their scope, really what is the ultimate document they want to produce. And then if they're missing something there, then we definitely want to influence that, and we definitely want to get the input from folks around the table here that do that scale on solar projects. Yeah.
So this is about the guide for large-scale solar projects. Certainly we do a lot of work on the East Coast, and I know that Massachusetts has developed a lot of documents like this about public big projects on either landfills or public land or other, and they have guidebooks like that. I can try to find ones I have. I know specifically they have ones that, on landfills because they encourage municipalities to do that type of work, but I'll see if I can find those and share those with the group.
Great, great. So there's a meeting first 2 weeks in March. I'm going to attend. Maybe stop and simply. Oh, okay, good. And so see, what do they want to achieve, and then if it looks like it fits what we're thinking of here in SEAC, that's fantastic, and that will help adjust it so it our needs.
Will this be like what Imperial County did?
What Imperial County did, they did a programmatic EIR. It's different.
Okay.
it's a good, it's valuable because it's good implementing.
Because it's an important part of it.
It's an important part of it. It's very global, so if anybody wants to do a project in your county, they have this programmatic EIR, which it helps tremendously because a lot of the mitigation is already built in. They can look at the issues. So I'm not sure what regional planning is thinking yet, but I'm hoping it's not just an EIR. The EIR type documents more of a manual from cradle to grave on what how to reach scale in this area.
But I thought that in that one document it said that this was comprehensive. This is everything you need to know for everything. I don't know if you've read that one document.
Oh gosh, I don't really.
There's a one part of their plan that the scope says that it is to cover everything.
Okay.
And that's why I was kind of curious.
I'll take a look at that.
There's a 70-page document, 77-page, that seemed. I mean, I did a cursory look of it, but it seemed like it hit every single aspect that I would even think about.
Okay.
But then I'm not the one who's always got all those things. So.
All right, I'll take a look at that.
When's this meeting? You said the meeting's in the beginning of March?
Yeah.
Just want to make sure.
I found out about it this morning. I'm
Oh, good.
not aware of it
Yeah.
yet.
So I think we are very fortunate that we have some power and we have RBI that mostly handle.
Yeah.
We are here for roof maps, but
I was on Solar Star. Yeah.
I think you actually finished with 560 megawatt installation.
580, yeah.
580.
Yeah, between Kern County and LA County, yeah.
And of course, RBI has been involved. We've been involved with RBI with
And some of our projects are together.
Canadian Solar, S Power. Yes, we're involved with the Canadian Solar, S Power, across the street.
So I still have contacts with all the utility folks at SunPower, so, you know, if you want to make sure, because I know you guys email Rob Dingy and all those folks, but I'll keep reminding them also, like, hey, you didn't know that. As much as I'd love to do it, I'm doing residential now.
So there, I don't have a date. The county last year or the year before they did a high-level ordinance called renewable energy ordinance, kind of high level, and this is one of the things that our kind of regional planning is supposed to do to meet whatever goals are in that ordinance. So I really don't have much detail. I don't know the date.
Okay.
But we'll get as much information as possible and bring it back to the group. And then we can engage those players that, SunPower, of course, and others that do those kind of projects. Definitely want your input in that. That's very critical.
Yeah.
And there's other firms out there, for instance, Max, that they're interested in having input, and others that definitely want to engage those folks.
First time, Mac actually worked with SunPower on that 580 megawatt.
They were the owner's engineer.
Owners here.
Yeah. So they did all the reviews for Berkshire Hathaway Energy. They were hired by Berkshire Hathaway to keep us honest.
So to get more info, we'll share with you guys and the scope of this project, and hopefully it fits perfectly. And that will close it and get it in.
Yeah, it sounds good. Because yeah, we have a whole database of stuff that we learned on the project.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, we have plenty of information.
Great. Thank you.
And then would you like to talk a bit about the SEAC webinar on March the 2nd?
Okay, webinars, I talked about a little bit, and that's going to be what actually this webinar probably besides what Sparky and Don Hughes did last month. It's one of the first instances where SEAC is actually going out there and presenting something under the SEAC label. And again, it's to get our information, what we do, put it out there in people's hands as much as possible. So we're going to be using webinars extensively, and we also have gotten recommendations to do a workshop. So that's not off the books. But maybe later this year, that takes a lot more logistics. But that's not off the table. So the webinars, at least on a monthly basis, and get our information out to folks. And I believe the people that have signed up so far, they're very, very few age shapes. It's incredible. And that's quite surprising. So how do we get the pay attention, that would be really good. You know, what are they looking for in terms of messaging? Hey, something I should join and participate in the webinar.
I find that a lot of people, I'm the education chair for the North California and Bay Area, and I find that most guys, they're like, well, you got CEUs that I can use for my my personnel certification.
Right.
That's what they're, and if there's not that, then it's like I'm not wasting my time.
Okay.
And the second thing to be aware of that is that ICC has established that preferred provider program. And so the ICC preferred provider program, basically, if you have that, then, well, I just flip it around. For maintaining your certifications, like for as a billing inspector or a plan checker or whatever, is that the first year it was 20% of the classes of your training time had to be with from a preferred provider, and it's being graduated over a couple of years, so that in about 2 years, I think more than 50% of your training has to be from that. So a lot of guys just look for, I'm just going to do my training with an ICC preferred provider. Preferred provider, if you are, those of us who can get it, you know, if we're industry, it's quite a bit of money to become a preferred provider. For chapters, what they do is it's something like $200 or something like that a year for it. And so I don't know if your local, if the ICC LA Basin chapter has done that or not. If they haven't, that might be the way to go, because then they can use it for a bunch of other classes, and then you could be able to have ICC LA Basin chapter assist by providing their preferred provider status for providing, and to be kind of like a sponsor, if you will. That would be a way to do it.
Okay.
And that would be really quick, easy, and reasonable cost to you.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
And then in April, we're probably going to do issue 2, methods to reduce follow-up inspections. So we're aiming to do a webinar every month, right? So all the recommended practices that we're now calling them, we will start promoting every month via webinars, and we can repeat them as well, which is nice to do. So.
Are you recording them and putting them on?
Yes. In fact, what I will do is the invite, the webinar invite that went out, I will share with the entire group, and especially the AHJs, to ask them if they will encourage others to join the webinar too.
Everyone has received it, right? Because I sent it to all the members. So.
Did all of you
receive the webinar invitation?
One thing to also think about, remember we had this discussion about how we get information out to people, and if you remember, it even discussed in our meeting report, meeting summaries from last time, is Marcus Gilmore was bringing up about going into different venues, having different groups, distribution lists. And so, like for example, Marcus had volunteered CSE getting the information out. You may want to look for others like that.
Yeah, so we did send to Marcus, and he said that they've put it on their CSE website, and they'll distribute it as well. So Don is going to be one of the presenters for the webinar.
I think one other important thing as far as getting the word out and training, NABCEP's Continuing Education Conference for picking up NABCEP CEUs will be in April in San Diego. I know if Jeff is here or was here, he would mention that. So they usually bring about 300 installers in from all over the country that have to get their credits to continue their NABCEP certification. So many of them may not be aware of SEAC yet, or what they're doing, or what they're up to, or things like that. So it might be a good place to.
So we're going to be there that day.
Perfect.
We are on.
Yeah, Jeff invited you, right?
To actually talk about it.
Oh, lovely.
If there is on, I'm on as well. I'm just going to know I'm on. I'm on part of the program.
All right, and then March's meeting will be at UL in Brea. And is there anywhere in particular, John, where I know some have asked me when they get to the UL office, where do they go? I know that we're going to have a meeting after this too. At the March 24th meeting. When they get to the UL office.
Well, when we get that information.
Right.
Yeah.
You asked me where do they go? In.
I'm sure we can find.
I guess that answers the question. Nobody heard it.
Minimum parking in the front. I already did this, so there's a minimum parking in the front, but you can park in the back.
Okay.
Yeah. There's, as far as it's been a while since I've been to that office, but as I recall, there's no, other than handicap parking, there's no other that I know of saying this is employee parking versus this is somebody else parking kind of thing. I'm not aware of that.
I think they should have parking lot with the Jew next door. I go there for my desk as well.
I wouldn't. But like I said, it's been quite a long time since I've been to that office.
No, that's it.
All right, so why don't we break for lunch, and then we'll resume at noon when the other folks come in, and we'll go to item 9, and we'll be able to wrap up pretty early. Yes.
I almost got it right.
Yeah, just get your .com.
No,
Okay, let me ask you a question. How did you like it?
What you went through here?
No. Did you really like it?
Okay, folks, we're going to get back to two people that stepped out, but we're going to get started anyway. We've got a couple folks from the Department of Water and Power. You can.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Peter Liang. I work in the Solar Development Group at LADWP.
I'm Director Selection. I work with the solar programs also with the LADWP. Good afternoon.
Glad you guys are here. We're on item number 9 of the agenda, which actually we'll move it around. This is the last item of the agenda, and I'll let Paula go into this. So this is we're trying to come up with some really good issue statements, and then our technical group, which we made up hopefully all the utilities and others, will then provide the background and the recommendations. I'll let Paula go from there.
Sure. Okay. So, and we also have Jim Cahill, who's joined us online as well.
Hi, Jim.
So, Jim. Hi, Jim. Thank you for joining. Is Pat Healy still online? Oh, okay. All right. So, just a quick background is last week we had a conference call. It was the utility group that volunteered at our last meeting. To discuss some of the, with basically recommendations and suggestions, and then we shared the document, and there was quite a bit of feedback and comments that came back. Thanks, Peter. And is Israel online? Oh, and from Israel, from SDG&E, Jim was the one that took the initiative to start the discussion. And what we're going to start off with today is, having heard the conference call last week and then having read a lot of the email communications, we've come up with 3 issue statements that we want to share with you today. I didn't get a chance to share it with you by email because I only finished it late last night. So our objective is to find issue statements that are clear and concise that we can start off with, and then broaden from that and write the recommended practices for that. So I'll start off with the first one, and we've got, it's either or, so please let me know what you prefer. We've stated procedures.
Maybe go just read all 3 of them so we get the whole picture, and then we can go.
Okay, so I'll read all 3 of them. So the first issue, we've said procedures to streamline interconnection practices for PV, or alternatively, we can say it interconnection best practices for PV. The objective of this is to facilitate streamlined interconnection practices for PV in a timely and cost-effective manner. The issue statement with that is interconnection timeline delays can be a common problem when installing PV. Or we can say it, the deployment of PV can be beset with interconnection timeline delays. Then issue 2, we've stated methods to expedite interconnection processes for PV. Alternatively, we can say it, expedited interconnection process guidelines for PV. The objective to facilitate expedited interconnection viewing and processing in a timely manner. The issue statement is interconnection reviewing and processing of PV is often the most time-consuming process. Reasons may vary from incomplete or incorrect interconnection application submittals that require rework and resubmittal to lengthy utility reviews due to application backlog and internal processes. And then the last one we've stated is issue 3, educational resources for utility interconnection processes for PV. The objective is to provide educational resources to assist in achieving timely interconnection best practices or processes for PV. And the issue statement there is the lack of appropriate information, education and training can hinder the deployment and utilization of PV. And inadequately trained workforce can create unnecessary obstacles and delays, resulting in an increased cost to industry. So those are the 3. How does everyone feel about them? We don't have to go with all 3. We can choose 2. We can choose all 3.
trying to capture those that were all the email exchanges. It did a fantastic job of coming up with solutions. And the solutions, they're kind of, some of them fit very well in under one issue, will fit on another, and some was not a good fit. So trying to capture possibly two issues that, hey, captures some of the challenges that people are facing out there from all perspectives. And then you're able to bring the recommendations underneath. So, I mean, the group that provided the recommendations, I don't think everybody has seen the draft recommendations. I don't think everybody's seen those. But those that, I know Jim Kane, you were involved. Who else was involved in?
Shai.
Oh, good. So maybe you guys may be good to kind of see where all those ideas you already generated, where would they best fit, or is there a variation of this?
I mean, the way I look at it, Paula, is that the issue 1 to me is pretty broad, and so to me, issue 1 could essentially encapsulate issues 2 and 3. In other words, inside of facilitating streamlined interconnection practices, we could also, touch on the expedited process, if there is one, and then the education could be in there too. I mean, that's just my cut on it.
Yeah.
So number 1 kind of captures everything.
Well, 1 is pretty broad.
One of the things we discussed was kind of separate the whole getting to PTO versus getting just how do we interconnect the system to the grid, right? So I think issue 2, the way I read it, has more to do with connecting it to the grid versus issue 1 that has more have to do with PTO. But maybe that's just the way I read it.
Okay. Well, how'd you like to see it?
I do think we need to separate into 2 separate items.
Okay.
And I think that's something we agreed on in that call.
Just from a point of view of what's, the fewer words, right, the better off you are. So in issue number 1, where it says procedures to streamline the connection practices for PV, it encapsulates exactly what you want to do. I think it's short and to the point. And then on the issue statement, the first one, I think is easier English than the second. The set is kind of a very sophisticated word.
So to facilitate streamlined integration practice for PV, it's that much kind of captures everything.
I think so. Okay. It says streamlined. That's what you want to emphasize.
Yeah.
Exactly. Does anybody, you guys that worked on this and have some recommendations, do you want to share some of those ideas and see?
You should have John here. He likes to wordsmith a lot of this stuff.
So here as the install, one of the challenges that you guys have, as well as the utility to this here, you just see what's going on, because as I think I'm talking about myself and, building officials here. So we don't know what all those challenges are. We feel like we have done our job. So, right.
I think we brought those up in that meeting, and so yeah, I'm just pulling it out. So I think the biggest ones have to do with how long it takes to. So from the moment we know, say we're talking about just data connection to the grid, and from the moment it takes to, we know we're going to need to do a main service channel upgrade to get a planner out there, get the results back. Whether the planner actually wants to speak with the utility or just with the customer, then the customer has to relay those the meter spot results back to the installer or not. That timeline is really time consuming, and when it's happy fast and everything goes well, it can take 2 weeks, 3 weeks, fine. But when things kind of get wacky and we need to, you know, if it's a bottom fed end main service panel, you need to relocate, and you may have to relocate the main service panel. Then you need a trenching map, and how long that's going to take to get a trenching map. And then you have something, in some utilities you actually have to pay a deposit just to get the engineering going on getting that trenching map. So just that process can take a really long time. By that time, we already have the permit. We can have the permit and just wait 2 months just for that meter stuff process to be concluded. I think. Yeah,
you might want to bring up what we talked about a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw this in there because it's a major part of solar. Right now, Southern California Edison is working on the solar adapter. We call it a generation meter adapter. And that's going to probably get rid of like about 70% of all the upgrades out there. You'll be able to just remove the meters, tap in that the adapter, and then put the meter back in, and then you're good to go. But there's going to be an inspection process because we can't do that on all the panels. If a panel's all dilapidated and ready to be changed out anyway, obviously you don't want to put an adapter on it. So if the panel does have to be changed out, we don't want you to put another panel like that to where they have to put an adapter. We want you to get a solar-ready panel that's already ready set up to accommodate the solar interconnection. So that's what we were talking about just a few minutes ago. But I'm on the committee that's working on it. It's just like 5 or 6 of us. And it should be in the ESR, our electrical service requirements manual, on the next quarter, which will be kind of like in June. That'll help us a lot with it.
We have those in Oceanside. SEAC has the RMAs.
Right.
I'm already, they're installing them, we're inspecting them. And it does eliminate a lot of the panels that don't need to get swapped out now.
Yeah, it'll be the same, pretty much the same thing.
Yes, it's a phenomenal idea.
The only difference is yours, I think yours has a breaker built in, because we don't have a breaker.
Okay.
We don't want to have to deal with coming back and resetting breakers and stuff. I know there's a lever on it. But
I was shocked when I found out I had a breaker.
Yeah.
It's a little mechanical.
Yeah, we want the simplest form. Even yours has a tail that goes up to the AT disconnect. We're just in charge of the actual adapter itself, and then the contractors are responsible for making all the connections.
So, I'll say like, I'll say Roy, your thing.
No, that's
well,
I was just going to put, so what we're talking about here so far is physical changes that have to be made at a site for interconnection, physical changes, changing meters out,
those upgrades,
metering arrangements and so on and so forth. I work for ABB, we sell inverters. So what I get, if I've seen one, I've seen 100 from different utilities. The interconnection report or interconnection instructions. And those documents, typically, I would say probably 80% of them that I've looked at, always reference synchronous machines. They don't talk about inverters. And they want to see reactive components and resistive components that are all associated with synchronous machines. It's completely different animals. So I've got a lot of guys that come back, guys being installers, sending me that document and say, hey, you know, what's the X prime of your inverter? Well, those values don't really exist for inverters. So where I'm going with all of this is that, you know, we need to upgrade. Utilities need to have a hand in this and upgrading them. The other thing that I was mentioning a minute ago to Gilbert was, and this kind of goes hand in hand, is what everybody likes to call effective grounding. Effective grounding is something that I go to half the utilities, and it's better than it was a few years ago. You go to a utility, go, yeah, it's got to be effectively grounded. You got to meet these requirements. Go to IEEE 142, the Green Book, and you look at it, you find all these nifty little ratios of synchronous machine parameters. So it doesn't work. So somewhere along the line, the utilities, and I say in general, have got to come up with a way to say, you know, here's a 100 kW generator synchronous that I'm going to tie to the line. Here's a 100 kW versus PV of an electronic inverter. Two different things, and you've got to have the right stuff in that interconnection manual so that people don't get confused and all this stuff. And also slow down the process, because I've seen it, I've seen it fall into the black hole where nobody really knows what to put in there, and you got somebody on the other side. Okay, the utility side going, oh, I've got to have that information. Can't get it. So this is one of those black holes that really causes a lot of problems in terms of, you let's make sure that when we talk about PV, that everybody's on the same page with what these devices do. And we're not talking about, a 100 kW diesel-driven generator. We're talking about an electronic inverter and the differences between them. So I mean, I know this is kind of specific, but this is very important in terms of slowdown. When people are filling out those documents, I mean, this is before you get to the point of saying, hey, I got to have maybe a meter upgrade or whatever. So that's my 50 cents worth.
Did that come up in part of the discussions?
No, it was not.
Okay, good. That's glad you brought it up. Yeah. So that's another one of the challenges that is fairly broad. Yeah. Okay. So going back, Kurt, I hate to get into a wordsmithing mode right now. Don't want to do that, but if there's, the first issue is very broad. We could just go with one generic, high level, and then capture everything in there, and that's, we could do that, or break it like Shai said into the degree of like the detail, separate those two. Is that the way?
I think it makes sense. I think it's just two different items we want to tackle.
Okay. So, what is your sense, Peter and Lee?
Just from hearing everyone's input, I feel like issue 1 might be the most appropriate for this topic at this point, because it is more vague. Looking at issue 2, we're trying to set up process guidelines. It might not fit every utility that's here. All our processes are a little different, right? And it will make these guidelines a little bit more complicated to understand.
So you could take number 1 and start off with connect to the grid, and you can follow the TTL. Yeah. That work. That and be sure to capture what Roy brought up.
So just the thought between the issue 1 and issue 2. Issue 1 seems to be more about what are the interconnection practices, period. And the second one is, okay, how do I get the most out of getting through that process quickly? And maybe, and I agree with, I understand that there's different because of the infrastructure of the different utilities that they have different, and they're going to unfortunately have to deal with that infrastructure that's confining them and how they accomplish their goals. So maybe it's maybe the first one's not necessarily a recommended practice or an issue, but maybe more of an informational bulletin. Thinking that way, these are the things that comprise of it, where you go, how you deal with it. Sometimes I think if people don't know what to expect, then they're going to say, oh my God, and they're going to come with part of the information they need, and the utility's going to go, I'm sorry, that's not all of it. I need you to come back with this, this, and this. No different than for you guys. You let them know up front, right? You let them these guys know up front, these installers, this is what I'm expecting in the plan. I'm expecting this information, and there's times where, unfortunately, some guy doesn't read it. Well, that's their fault, not yours. You've made the effort to tell them exactly what to do.
And so, I think there's a couple words here that are kind of separating these two, but I think they could be a little clearer to find. So, it's saying streamlined practices, which to me sounds like, practices sounds like this is what the installer should do in order to really streamline how they go ahead and set themselves up to apply for interconnection, right? We want to streamline that so people, they can start following practices on how to do this properly. Then the other one, issue 2, is expedited processes, right? So when I hear the word expedite, it makes me think that we're talking about a process that if we needed something quicker than usual, this is the path we're going to follow, right? And so, interconnection processes is more on the utility side to figure out their process for processing all these interconnection applications. So is that what we're doing? Is issue 1 is towards how you want to go about installing so that you can apply for your interconnection in a streamlined way, and then the second one is about what the utility can put in place to, I think, streamline their process, not expedite the process, right? If they have I mean, if we want to talk about a separate expediting process, that'd be good too, right? If you needed a PTO quicker than usual.
I mean, just from previous discussion, it's not creating a special expedited process within an organization. It's not that. It's looking at, from both perspectives, from the installer contractor, you know, what is their knowledge or experience in doing this, and what can they do to better educate themselves, to better prepare applications, to do whatever necessary to have the right contacts, they know, they understand how to work with the utility. The other side is, what can the utility do from their end, understanding the challenges that the installers have to make things better, more streamlined, providing more information, the application is clear, provide contacts, whatever they can do. Is it a matter of resources? A lot of times it can be a matter of resources. So what can the utility do? Of course, it's looking from both perspectives.
Yeah.
And then,
So I think you know, the word streamline is what should be used in both, and you know, maybe not expedite in the other one, because we're just trying to streamline, right? We're not, or even improve it, right? Yeah, improve, right? So because expedite is making it sound like we're going to try to make it a new expediting kind of process.
Right? You hear it's just, you know, we heard, you know, it's you know, on best conditions, everything is 2-3 weeks, fantastic. Worst case, it could be months. And then who gets hit is the homeowner, whoever's sitting there waiting, and again, I already paid everything I got, my permit, somebody hit the switch, turn it on. So, you know, how do you cover that in two? And it sounds like maybe 2 issue statements will be good, not a high level that covers everything, maybe break it up so you get both perspectives. But it's always the idea is that we learn and that we can go back and do these things whenever possible.
So what's the difference between procedures and methods? What I'm seeing on the screen. They kind of seem to be pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And so, but consider taking more of how you were saying, I think, is that maybe it's more of just like identifying. Maybe a thought is to do similar to what has been doing with 2703. Figure out the different stakeholders. What do the utilities? What are the constraints that the utilities have? What can they do? What are they doing? And then the installers, what do they don't have information? They need this. They need that. They need it in a time frame. And then figure out from that what will help both sides, if you will, the equation to understand what to do to improve the process.
When we're talking about this, just taking a step back what I said a while ago, is this residential only, or are we talking about commercial as well? In other words, commercial systems that are going to go on top of your local warehouse,
which is going to be a lot different.
Because that is really the growing business in solar these days. I mean, residential is pretty solid, and yeah, we got the ITC, and it's going to continue to be solid. But there are a boatload of commercial people putting in three-phase systems of, you know, a megawatt on a rooftop. I talked to 5 people yesterday, and it's about 7 or 8 megawatts worth of systems going in. And those actually are the systems that I was referring to, with long involved write-ups and requirements and instructions to get all of it done, because that is a bigger deal. Now you're impacting, if you're going in at a 12 kV medium voltage, and how does that impact the feeder, et cetera. The other thing that's going to come out in all of this, I think, maybe I'm jumping too far ahead on this, but everybody's heard of Rule 21, the Rule 21 smart inverter stuff. You know, that's one more thing now that the utility's going to have to take in, along with all that information, and come back and say, yeah, you can put that PV system in, but you're going to have to run on a 0.97 power factor. Or I want you to give me bars. And those kinds of things we're not doing that now, but it's literally right around the corner. So there's a lot of things. So I'm throwing things out here. I'm trying to figure out how does that all fit into this.
Yeah, Chris Breyer would like to add something.
Chris.
He's currently not, he has no connected microphone, but let me just read this for you. The utility interconnection process is pretty straightforward. while there are some best practices we can put forward, is there an actual opportunity to streamline or expedite this portion of the project? I'm sure he wants to speak, but he hasn't finished connecting, so I can't access him at the moment.
So I suspect, while you're catching up with that, I would suspect that with, I've heard different utilities have different infrastructures, correct? And so therefore you have different practices, and because of that, and there's certain things you just can't do in a certain order that, maybe Southern California Edison can do it in one way, but LADWP cannot do it. But there's something LADWP can do that SDE can't.
Yeah, there's always different changes or different methods that each utility uses. That's why you always have to contact the local utilities and find out what they're allowing or not allowing.
And I would also think it would also make a difference of whether that was something that was of a newer installation versus an older installation that I'm adding this to, correct?
That's correct, but there's, as you well know, all of you well know that there's constant change in the way things are being done. That's why we're here to try to simplify and make things better. But there's always, different changes that occur every year, and they have to make adjustments accordingly.
So I've heard that there's a special difference between full-scale residential and commercial, right? So this has not been targeted at any particular sector, and
I think we were probably talking more about residential in that meeting. I think that it wasn't stated, but I think it was. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, we had at our last meeting said for small residential rooftop solar energy systems up to 10 kW, and then Pete Jackson said that he thought that was restricting it. We should take it out.
Okay, so and I'm struggling too. Is this are we when we're talking about these interconnection practices? Are we talking about just the process of here's the pieces of information, the documentation you need to provide for the utility to review and to approve this to be done, and that the utility will be out in the next number of time and all that kind of stuff? Are we talking about the administrative process, or are we talking about, okay, here are the different couple of things you can do. Either you can, if you're going to tap ahead of the service point, this is what you do. If you're going to tap on the load side, this is what you're going to do. If you're going to use these peers connection, I mean, what are we talking about? Are we talking about the actual physical different methods you can use? So, or are we talking about the process of the ministerial process of enforcement and of acceptance and enforcement?
So, stepping back a little bit, this is good. And the reason I say that is because this is what happened at SEAC. When we start getting to discussions, we start digging deep, and there's more to this than right, meets the eye. So we've had this discussion and decided, okay, it's commercial, it's a small scale, it's this and that, and then it starts to grow. So especially,
especially when I talk, right? I got it. I heard.
I was going to refer to UL 2703. The more you dig, you dig in, there's a lot more in there. I wasn't talking about you, John. No, what if you want me to? So anyway, so this is good because it just exposes other things that we need to consider. So it sounds like the original focus is 10 kW or less, and because there's definitely a difference when you go bigger than that, and there's different issues. So since I think the discussions that were held, especially some of the recommendations, were for the small scale. So if we can focus on that now, keep in mind that there's other things you got to deal with when you go to commercial, and then that will be a totally separate issue to tackle. That's
yeah, sounds good. To me, I mean, just listening to the whole conversation in general, it kind of makes sense to specifically target residential when we're talking about residential, or specifically target commercial, because if you just go at random, I mean, generalize, it's not going to apply. One's not going to apply to the other when you get down to the bottom line, and it's going to cause, like you said, in the other SEAC meetings that you've been to, or CEO meetings that you've been to, you wind up finding out that there's more behind what you're discussing. And I think we really need to specifically target residential and talk about just residential, and when it comes to commercial, separate the two. Because if you just talk in generalized form, one's not going to really apply to the other.
So if we use the word streamlined, I think streamlined means residential less than 10 kW.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, but you have to.
You have to say that.
You can't say streamlined.
You have to say that.
Have people assume that you know what.
No, but when I don't think you should use the phrase, streamline if you're talking about something that could be expedited. Okay. They're different processes. Streamline on the 2188 means residential. Doesn't mean.
No, I would.
So what do we? If it's okay with you guys, I'm sorry to interrupt. If we can focus this initial one or two issue statement on residential, and on the side above a separate one or two issues on the commercial end. It may be very similar, but one says small-scale residential, one says commercial. But what comes out of it could be different.
I think the solutions are different.
They're different, exactly. They'll be two different.
The way you resolve that issue is going to be different.
Right. So, if it's game, yes.
The other thing is that I think I was just trying to follow what John was saying. Is we need to identify what are the challenges, what are the issues from the installers versus the utility. We don't know that. I mean,
there's also for you guys too.
Yeah.
What information do you play? What's your role?
What information do
you have to do? Because if you took a little time, you didn't know you had to provide something to the utility, and everybody's waiting. You don't know it. They're waiting on you for some information. You didn't know that.
Absolutely.
In the recommendations that we made in that document that Jim and Israel kind of sent out and updated, one of the things kind of mentioned, for instance, they gave the example of San Diego County, where some jurisdictions will not give you a permit unless you have a work order for the panel upgrade. So you have to wait for the utility to send the planner out before you can get a permit with the jurisdiction. So some cities have that, some cities don't. I mean, there's a discussion here that to be had between installers, utility, and jurisdiction.
Okay, so how do you write that into initiative? How do you take that? It sounds like it's a process. There could be some education there, but how do you capture that here in just very few words? Suggestions?
What I think that you're trying to know what are the challenges are, then we can write something for it.
Okay.
But if you don't know what the challenges are, so for example, we could write one general include City of San Diego, County San Diego's requirement on that.
So,
but if you don't know what all of these issues are.
So Jim and others did a fantastic job of coming up with recommendations. Now we're actually kind of working backwards. We have broad solutions, but now we got to actually write the question. We got the answer. Now we got to type the question.
So I feel like I understand very easily what the process is for getting a permit from any jurisdiction. What would be expected generally, and I could figure out, here's you call for inspection, so forth. Can we hear what is the process that would be for the utility? Because I'm guessing on some of it. I don't feel like I understand it as well, and I'm hearing that there's differences, and I think it sounds to me like there's probably, I'm going to guess that there's more differentials between different utilities and their interaction with the various jurisdictions within those utilities than there is of differences between jurisdictions on how you go through getting the permit in general. I mean, how I get my permit and get my final approval in a building department, I think is, sorry to say this, Gillard, it sounds more, tends to be more consistent on it, but that's just because there's, again, different infrastructures or whatever. It would be helpful to know. Maybe somebody could walk through generally what is it, what does one have to do?
You could have,
let's say my parents, which is in your served by your utility. What does if my parents decided right now we want to put on these PV panels on our roof? What approval does any of these installers would have to go through to get the utility to accept that interconnection?
the first thing they need to do is they need to contact their local planning department, and then at that point they would give you all the requirements. And then of course you need to contact the AHJ. You could have one utility and 100 different AHJs in that area. So we have to deal with all these different cities and all these different counties, and we're still just one utility. So that's the reason you need to go to your local Edison Service Planning Department.
So the installer is going to go both, because my parents are in the LA County jurisdiction, South knows this very well. Is that so? They would, the installer would go to both you, one of your planners, and go to one of his plan checkers to say, here's this, would they be able to do that simultaneously?
Yeah, but you happen to use him as an example. It might be DWP might be the utility, but if it happens to be Edison, well it's
Edison. I'm talking Edison.
Yeah, well if it's Edison,
this is in the northern, in the foothills up here.
Okay, yeah, then they would just go to the local, probably Monrovia or wherever the local service planning.
So can the installer go to both of you at the same time, or do they have to do it? I have to get something from you first before I can go to Mustafa, or I have to get something from Mustafa before I go to you?
Usually they go to the utility first, and then they bring whatever they get from the utility to the AHJ and present it. Or I really don't know which.
I think what are the challenges? What are the challenges that you hear from the PV installers that you like to?
Well, I mean, the kind of complaints I get most of the time are that they're not allowed to tap into certain parts of the electrical panel. Those are the big complaints that I get. I don't get
so that's the physical
stuff. I don't get
that's not the process.
No. So just high level the process, and I think that's the thing that's shared with all utilities. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's pretty consistent. So yes, to Gilbert's point, yeah, we reach out to we contact the utility usually before we even submit the permit. As soon as we know that we're going to do a main service panel upgrade or usually a main service panel upgrade, we can reach out to the utility even before we submit for permit to start the meter spot process, to know whether the main service panel can say whether the upgrade can be in the same location or whether we need to relocate it. And so we start the process there. And what we do is we submit an application. Either we do it online with certain utilities, or we reach out to customer care, whatever the process is. The utility will send out a planner to inspect that location to see if we can keep it in the same location or have to relocate it. And then we would get the results either straight from the utility, or they would leave it with the customer and we would get it from the customer. At which point we'll know is it the happy path where everything goes well and same location and we're good, or now we have to start relocating.
Or the sad path.
Yeah, or the sad path where we're going to have to start relocating gas meters or main service panel and do a bunch of trenching.
So how long does this process take? Is there a problem with the timeline on this? You guys are issue with the utilities that they see their time?
The two main things that I can think of from the top of my head right now, actually there's more, is one is how long it takes to get the planner out there. Some utilities take a week. Some utilities take 6 to 8 weeks. Get it back from them, it also changes. But in some cases, when we go into that sad path, then we get into a point where we need to start putting engineering around where the new main service panel is going to be. We need a new map. We need to know where we need to trench, and then there's also the other work on the back end by our end, though we need to get quotes on how much it's going to cost us to do all that additional work. But in order to do so, we need to get the information from the utility, which also can take a couple of weeks before we even get that information.
Do you find it difficult to find out from any given utility? I'm not wanting to cut any of them at the moment, but do you find difficult sometimes to figure out, okay, what are the technical requirements?
Technical requirements?
As in, okay, maybe one utility might say, oh, we're going to require that you regardless, you're going to have to change out the panel. Or another one says, I will not accept this type of connection, but I will accept these others. Or and you don't know that until you've started the process, or do you find that you can readily find the information that the utility will accept right up front? I'm assuming that the utility will do that because you have similar like PG&E, like having a green book, right?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
But that is more on the jurisdiction, to be quite honest, because the jurisdiction is going to be the one going to tell me whether I can, whether if it's center fed, whether they accept the 120% rule or not. They'll tell me whether I can do those guidelines usually are from the jurisdiction. I also get these from the utilities, but I know pretty much what the utility is going to expect. The jurisdiction is usually the one where I get surprised the most.
Well, it should be no surprises from LA County and that's one. But
you're one of many jurisdictions too.
Yeah. Right. But my question to you is, we keep talking about service operator. What about if there is no service operator? Is that a full transaction?
And who determines if the service operator is required?
So we do based on the requirements and guidelines given to us by the jurisdiction.
By the utility, isn't it?
No, by the jurisdiction.
Well, no, that's not that.
Both.
Yeah. So actually, this is how it goes. I got a 100 amp panel, and I can, by a code, it allows me to put a 20 amp PV. If I want to put anything larger than that, that's my house. Right. That has to do with the jurisdiction. Yep.
That's good.
So now, but I've heard that some of them, there's operations taking place that are not necessary.
I mean, define unnecessary. They're not necessary by whom? And that's what the question is.
Well, one thing that the discussion is on the table, and I think I brought it up, is center fed panel. Okay, center fed circuit breaker panels, circuit breaker panels. That by code, as we speak, they 20% rule, all that stuff, as you know about it. So if you could clear that up on the code level, clear this thing up for once and all, that we don't have to worry about it. What I'm just saying, for me, the issue that we have that I keep the most is service operator. Is there any other issue? Because if there's no service operator, you said there should be there is no problem, right? From you guys, from utilities, from installers, some power utilities.
I mean, for the most part, so I work on new residential stuff, so my issues are a little different. I'm working on new construction, so we get the right main service panel in there. I don't have to deal with upgrades. For us, I mean, really, it's just the fact that each utility sort of has its own application process. So, we have an interconnection group that has to learn every single utility's application process, and then like what you're saying, every utility has a bunch of jurisdictions that they have to work with. So we have different, final permits that we have to submit. And then some municipalities, they want to see the actual single line diagrams, of what was actually submitted, and it's got to be the same. So, I mean, we just deal with some of the paperwork. The one, the LADWP, I think what's interesting is that LADBS and LADWP are linked electronically. So when you get your final permit, I can't just take my final permit and give it to LADWP. I got to wait for the system of LADBS to update LADWP, and that's where some things can get stuck. And then, we're chasing this person saying, hey, didn't it update? And they said, yeah, well, I look it up here, and it shows that it's updated. I said, can you send me confirmation? No, I can't send you that information. You're going to have to go ask LADWP if it got updated and say, hey, did it update? Well, I don't see it in my system. You have to ask them. They said it's updated, but I don't see it. But, and I can't get access to either that information, but they're both telling me.
Which sounds like an infrastructure.
So it's like, so I think that's where the process can be streamlined, right? So that's
an infrastructure issue.
Thank you for this. Fact. And then we finalize the information. We set the facts before that.
So you guys use the facts?
We use that.
Yeah.
That's the system that the other wants to communicate.
Yeah. I mean, the way we do it on PowerClerk is we chase down the builder to send us the final permit, because in California, the builder is the one that calls for the final inspection, even though it's our permit, and they
they have to make sure that the inspector writes solar okay, signing off on solar as well as the building permit itself. And if that doesn't say solar on it, then we're stuck and we got to go back to the builder and somehow get the inspector to update it. So that's where we run into those issues.
Mm-hmm. You said you had something?
Oh, yeah, LADWP and our LADBS system, we did have a permit release issue. Way back when we first started working together, the two city departments had an agreement that LADBS has to physically release the project in order for LADWP to install a meter. We used to do that with faxes, and what we found out is we were losing, facsimiles. And afterwards, we developed a release system, but on the building and safety side, a clerical person actually has to go punch in the information. And what was happening for a few years was that if that person went on vacation, or if they were just inundated with the work, we would just never see the release until someone calls it, and then someone has to go and find out what really happened. But we since automated that, so I was wondering if you're still running.
I mean, that's the thing. I'd say, 80% of the time we don't have a problem. It works. It's fine. I'm really talking about kind of the edge cases. So, the issues we had was with KB Homes, and I think there was other reasons too that things were getting held up on that LADBS side. But I guess what we're trying to do here is establish something that's almost foolproof. I don't want to say foolproof. It's like fail-safe or whatever. It's going to work every time, right? In order for that to happen, I think we need to somehow be able to have that information in our hands so that we can submit the application, as opposed to waiting for the jurisdiction to talk to the utility, right? Or at least allow us a little bit more visibility on that communication happening between the jurisdiction and the utility. Visibility. You're looking for transparency. Yeah, or transparency. Yeah. So I mean, I'm not trying to get in the middle of your process to say, I want to do this. Going on. I just need to be able to somehow validate and send confirmation to someone and say, hey, it did pass.
For us at Oceanside, working with SCGE, it's on me when I get back to the office that day to submit an email. I list out all of the solar passes I had that day, email it over directly to the same nice ladies I talked to for calling, so like a meter release. I'm actually calling them on the phone today. The next day, from my understanding, the next day, the solar companies can actually call and verify that was actually emailed in and confirmed. Now from there, whatever 2 weeks it takes, I have nothing to do with it. But puts the responsibility on the inspector to finish our job by releasing. But also, we used to fax, we stopped that about 4 or 5 months ago. The email is instant, and they get it, and they submit it, and they release it, everything right there. So maybe other people can go to other jurisdictions and go that way too.
Like that.
So one of the things I was hearing earlier that was confusing me a little bit. So you're saying that, I go, and each utility has a slightly different application process.
Yeah.
Slightly or mostly, whatever. But you also have that with every jurisdiction as well.
Yeah.
The building and safety department. And so I'm not sure how that is. Why would we say, oh, there's a problem with this with the utilities, but we're not having that problem with the building and safety department? And it's just, to me,
we are.
To me, it's just a matter of I don't know. From all the discussion, it sounds to me like the real big issues are trying to understand what the process actually is, and that simply, what it sounds like a lot of times is that as long as people are performing their roles and responsibilities, then it's moving along. Is that right?
No, it is.
So then what I'm asking is that, well, what would we be trying to tell utilities to do?
I think we're trying to get them to line up. So the permitting side, right?
So we want them to all be exactly the same.
No, what I'm saying is that there's a permitting side, right? And we're trying to tackle that with AB 2188, right? We're trying to streamline that process. We're working on that. And so now we're talking about how do we streamline it.
Wait, just hold on a second for a moment. But each jurisdiction can have differences on the permit application.
Oh, I know. And I'm dealing with that, yeah. We deal with that all the time.
Right, okay.
What he's trying to say is that it's why AB 2188, every jurisdiction, you have to have their own guidebook or set of ordinance.
Or a reference that's substantially in conformance with the state capital.
Absolutely. So what they're saying, that you're saying, either make one uniform or make one genericity or utility. Let us know that so we know what the policy is and how long it's going to take and all that, right?
I mean, what we're doing here, we're talking about streamlining, right? And so I was just walking us through the process of what it takes. And right now, right, we have to figure out the application process for every utility. And okay, that's what it is. And then we have to figure out the permit process for every jurisdiction. And we do. And we are submitting based on these procedures. And I think, my earlier point I was trying to make was, we get hung up. I think the jurisdictions or the utilities or jurisdictions where we're getting hung up the most is when, we're waiting for the jurisdiction to have to submit the approval over to the utility, and then there's nothing we could do other than call two separate people, but not have any visibility or transparency into, how things are coming across, right? So I think that's really the pain point. And it's not, I don't want to say it's a huge pain point. I mean, it's maybe not even 10% of the homes we're installing have this issue. But if we're looking to streamline a process, I would say it's more about, having directions, but also, being able to have the power within our own hands to be able to take what we need from the jurisdiction and hand it to the utility ourselves and say, yeah, this is what I got from the jurisdiction, so can I get my interconnection now? I get the feeling that's not going to happen.
Well, how about this? From looking at the recommendations, there are a lot of good recommendations here, and I think a lot of it are referencing utilities that are maybe such as LADWP, whose practices are not in line with someone who does more solar like SoCal Edison. So we're talking about a comparison between IOUs and municipalities who might be lagging behind in coming up with new requirements that makes it easier for the developers and installers. So would this be more helpful as a best practices statement to kind of suggest new devices like the RMA, to other utilities, other AHJs to make these recommendations for adoption that will help the solar industry, and then that way we can start tackling each of these items one by one. For example, a permitting process, RMA.
I agree. I agree with you, Peter. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to see if there's any way. I'm not saying all the utilities are going to have the exact similar process. I don't think we're going to be able to get there.
Yeah.
But I think just having simple things like the RMA, GMA, whatever we call it, to be implementing more utilities, or having the ability to have the communication directly from the installer with the utilities, having to go with the customer as long as we have the customer permission to do so. Things like that we don't have with every utility at the same level or the same way. Those are things that I think we can talk about as part of the recommendations we make there.
Yeah, but I think you're only going to be accomplished if there's a written, just like a 21 year guidebook and toolkit. So I'm enforcing it as well as Oceanside is enforcing it as well as all the jurisdiction. And what the industry is telling us, okay, I'm going to be submitting my document to this toolkit or to these forms, and I'm going to stick with those items only. That's why I think the industry is looking for you guys at the today to come up with a set of, okay, you want to do a service upgrade, you got to go through this 15 items.
So, okay, before you move forward, so something like that can be written up from SEAC. Best practice. Here are 15 or 20 points that
like a checklist.
That if it's used and everybody agrees it's a good thing to be used and hopefully everybody adopts it, then it's going to make things quicker, more transparent. So that's best practice. So again, so go on. Sorry.
So what I'm saying is,
it's not necessarily writing a whole new book, guys.
No.
Go on.
I'm done. So just either you kind of have to.
No, you don't have to. I raised my hand. Gilles, there's approximately what, about
20 some odd, I'm trying to think out real quick, about 20 some odd utilities, both municipal and public and private utilities in the state of California, right?
Yeah, the state of California, yeah. We have like 60 to 70 throughout the Eastern Territory.
Right, but I'm just talking about California, probably about 20 of them, right? More or less.
That's 23.
And I was just thinking is that I'm wondering if there might be something about just for the residential side of if each utility could kind of show just in block in a flow chart, a flow diagram. Here is how the process, and maybe that might be if you take a look and you see all these different flow charts, and maybe facilitate there being some discussion amongst the different, because there's few utilities compared to how many jurisdictions there are, and to see if there's some way to have a discussion where you can kind of say, hey, wait a minute, that's a cool, because I can't recall ever being, this never being discussed at USERC about the process. Like
yeah, that would be a good way to get uniformity.
And then you can actually say, hey, and hey guys, this is not scary. We can do this part and that, and that might achieve even more so what you're after. You're after trying to get a more at least I would think that it's not just a streamline, but a logical process to you, or at least you understand. Okay, I get why they're not that I appreciate this, but I understand why they're doing it. It's not just some arbitrary in your mind.
And that's how the guidebook got actually got
exactly.
Because out of 7 members of the people who put the guidebook, there was 5 of us from jurisdiction, LA County, CWA, Bakersfield, Rwanda from
City Palo Alto, and then there was the province children like me.
Well, yeah. So what John is saying is, and that's how when 4 or 5 jurisdictions put that guidebook together and the toolkit together, that became recognized throughout the state, and that became part of the guidebook, and that will become part of the law saying, yes, we have the recommended practice. You could either choose this, adopt it, and do it, or you could have yours similar to this.
And make a SEAC can facilitate that discussion.
Yes. Right. So that's what the whole is.
What I'll do is I'll assign someone, because I don't have the time to do it, I'll assign someone to get the list of all the utilities in California and contact information, and then we'll reach out to them. And
just ask them can you just give us, what's the information you provide to these guys? Or what do you provide, and oh, wait a minute, you got this buried in your website. You have to. I would never have figured this out in a million years. Or hey, wait, what is it? Was it you said before, Hector, the plagiarism part about hey, if there's something cool being used by another county, you're going to look at that and go, that's LA County requirement. I mean, you learn from each other.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way the toolkits are set up in 2188. You just take the logo and you superimpose it, and now it becomes Moreno Valley. And sometimes what they do, though, is they have the ability to take out certain things. So when I'm the expert, and I have to go look, I go to that website, I start looking for the toolkit, which they don't call toolkit. They give it, they call it checklist, or they give it some other name. But when you've seen enough of them, you know where it came from. They're all very similar. If you had one like that from the utility, that everybody, I mean, at least you'd know this is not going to be fast. This is going to be slow.
Well, as I remember from what happened, which I was talking about, I mean, it started out with a big committee, and then there was this small portion that Sama Yunan was the chair of, that we developed what is the heart of the guidebook. But what was interesting is that if you looked across all of who was involved in the development of that solar guidebook, look at the list of people. Tell me how many utilities you see. Sacramento Municipal Utility District. MUD was the only one that was at all of those task group meetings. So therefore, that was why there's only one little paragraph in the guidebook regarding utilities. So that's where I think this is the opportunity for SEAC and SEAC and USERC to work together. That's it.
Well, no, so just real quick here. And we keep going around on all this on who's doing what. One of the things I thought about was this. There are a number of big companies out there, without naming names, how about Solar City, Longevity, and all the guys that call up and say, hey, let me look at your roof. I've got it on Google Earth. Boom, boom, boom. I'm doing a design. Here it is. This is what I can put on your roof. Sign me up. You can't tell me that these guys don't have a process for every utility, because we're doing it on massive levels, right? You can't just fiddle around. When you're trying to do 200 or 300 a day or whatever it may be, you got to have a process. Maybe we can gain something from those guys that they're willing to share.
That was my old question from the beginning. What else is China? What else is
Yeah.
So understanding the process.
So we're hearing back.
Yeah.
Okay.
So really what this comes down to is, going back to the word of streamlining, expediting, improving. It's kind of like, where are we today? What can we do to make it better? Or what can we do to normalize and standardize something that we know that works from whatever company if they want to share that and do it that way? Because to a certain degree, we're kind of like redesigning the wheel.
And when you're redesigning the wheel, it takes a lot of time, so I think we should probably maybe have a big discussion. I'm not trying to interfere. I was just going to say we should probably have put aside a couple hours to have this type of discussion at the next meeting or something, and kind of stick to what we got going on the board there.
Okay, so exactly, thank you. Coming back, the whole exercise of this is trying to come up with the problem statement. Really, what is that? There's a lot of solutions, a lot of approaches we can take. We can go and talk to USERC. We can do all kinds of benchmarking. That's going to take a lot of time. We can tap into the installers. Hey, you guys know what you deal with on a daily basis. From what you guys have seen out there, what do you think is the best that works? And
how about just parallel and all of that? All those different things happening at the same time.
Okay. So that's, you're saying hear back from the installer, get your recommendations.
I'm suggesting that you work on this, but you also try these other avenues simultaneously, so that at the end that you can, that actually getting the information from utilities, having the installers share what they are willing to share, having this, it all kind of validates and helps you see it from different perspectives. That's all.
So what we're trying to solve right now is a process issue, and educate folks. This is the process out there, and maybe a generic process, and then say, hey, we looked at what's out there right now, and these are our recommendations as to what we feel is the best process for hoping to implement. That's correct?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So John's suggesting multiple process. We get our next meeting is a UL. It's on March 24th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we can get time goes by so fast and everybody's so busy, and you guys,
you get an extra day of sleep here.
Oh yeah, you get sleep here, right?
Yeah, you get an extra day.
So and just coming here is a tremendous task. We understand that, but from what we can hear from the installers, from your experiences, okay, what do you see is something that works from your experiences that we can put together as, hey, here's a good checklist and some what we've seen in terms of processes, and then talk to user and see what can we get from them. As I don't know if we can sit there and forward through 70 different charts. That may be 20.
Well, I'll be the first. I'll be the first to tell you, even if we contact some utilities, there's probably some utilities that don't want to have anything to do with anything. They just don't want to be involved, or they don't want to have anything to do with it. So sometimes it takes a lot of extra effort to contact the general managers and make them.
So Hector, in reality, what's going to happen is there's 20 some odd utilities. There'll be about the 5 usual suspects, maybe 6 that will respond.
And
from that, you'll get at least an idea of some different processes that are working. And the sheer fact of the whole thing is that I hope I'll say it again if I haven't said it already, is that it's just, I find it hard to talk about how to streamline a process when it's not really clear for several of us what the hell the process is to begin with. Yeah, how do you explain, how do you figure out how to improve something when you don't know what it is to begin with?
Identifying first the existing processes and then making it.
Just one thing, as an installer, I mean, I think for us, the most important utilities are probably the bigger ones. Whether DWP, whether SCE, whether SCG&E, whether PG&E. So I mean, those are the ones where we probably want to focus the most on. I mean, we can getting the other ones.
Right, so the Pareto analysis would do that for you, right? So, and you go for those.
So we have some major utilities here. If we get your processes, that that'll be very helpful. And if we get a few more, that's the bonus.
Okay. Can I say something? I think as any of the installers that are here, like you guys were saying earlier, if you find out what's working for you as a statement, and then the next statement would be what problems do we have with the AHJ, and then that would be the second statement, and then the third statement would be what problems do we have with utilities. And then if you address those 3, I think that would be encompassing everything to solve the problem.
The 3 main steps, yeah.
Okay, so we have some action items coming out of here. What you just mentioned right now, those problem statements. What works and doesn't work from an AHJ perspective? What works and doesn't work from a utility perspective? That's correct?
Yeah, and then what's working well with the installers already? What's working?
Please provide feedback.
Okay, so got that.
Can we also hear what the utilities might be struggling with, what information they're getting from the jurisdictions or from the installers?
Well, good. So those questions.
Think of it as both directions.
Yep, both directions. Okay. So what we'll do is, I don't know if today, maybe tomorrow, Professor Paula is writing those questions, sending them back to everybody, and we look at it from both perspectives, and then get information from the utility side and use it as much as possible, and then from the installers, what you see out there as really good best practices, give that back to us.
And I suggest we get 2 groups, installers and utilities, let them together, come up with those, and then form a subcommittee of them.
Yeah.
So that's it.
We can do that.
Workshop or something.
Yeah. Are you
Makes
guys?
more sense.
I'm fine with that.
So you, the hold up, Solar City, Jim is on the line.
Jim, online feedback. Anybody?
Callum?
Yeah. I mean, this is Jim Cahill. We, as somebody said in the conversation, we probably have all these processes from each utility, and we can at least start there if we need to do a quick presentation from our interconnection group, just to say these are the utilities that we work with, and these are the processes that we follow for each one.
Well,
or we can pick.
Because I'm sure you deal with a lot of utilities. We're looking more. I mean, if you go through all the utilities, more of you don't even have to mention specific utility.
The main principle.
You can just say, hey, we looked at from your interconnection team. This is what's seen that works. These are good practices that work that we have seen. And then we also, this is what doesn't work. So, and we get that perspective from the installer, and then we get the same perspective from the utilities. This is what
we need this because of this. We need that because of that. That would help.
Yeah. Is that clear?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Jim,
Yeah, I can do that.
Jim Shai here. I can call you, or we can set something up to talk about that and present us.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Now, the utility folks, is that something maybe?
No, I think that's a good way to go about it, because if you're addressing the problems and you're addressing the things that work, and you know where you're at, where you stand, and you know how to move forward.
And we're going to keep this to residential scale for now, correct? Everybody okay?
So with the utility, I was hearing that it would be Tiffany Gilbert.
Yeah. We're okay?
Yeah.
All right, good.
Well, at least moving forward.
Yeah, moving forward. All right, anything else on this particular item? And the folks that did all the initial work, really great recommendations, really good comments. I'm sure all of that will be used one form or another. Any other comments from anybody at this time before we close? Anything else?
On this particular topic or in general?
Anybody over here at the channel here? Online, anybody have anything to say this time? All right, folks. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here and joining us online, and thank you for your participation.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Yeah, literally, Cincinnati. Yeah, I went to
Oh, okay. America.
Yeah.
you live off the road.